I call the August 24th, 2026 meeting of the Carver School Committee to order. If everyone could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It looks like it closed. I have what I call the blue circle of death. I don't know why. Oh, looks like it just copied it for some reason. Is anyone from the UPC
Tom
board?
is on the call.
Is he?
Tom, you out
Okay.
there? Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Welcome.
I say that was a short summer.
But
Yes, very short.
Very short. We got out of the 4th of July and we just kind of hit the ground running.
yeah, I'm having some feedback issues. But Tom, go ahead. I think we'll be okay, Tom. We'll get through it.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Yep. Can you hear us?
All right, I'll try to talk quieter as I tend to be loud sometimes.
Yeah.
No, it was a quick summer. I hope everybody had a chance to get away and go, please go to the pool or the beach and just get a little time to unwind. I'm excited this year because I get to participate in Carver opening day. It's not often, it doesn't happen all the time that I'm alive, so I'm quite excited to be able to participate with everybody. And for the lack of background noise, I'll cut it off pretty quick. Also this September, our IAC already has, I believe we're going to be meeting with the IAC to try to wrap up, everything we've been working on over the past few years with health insurance. So hopefully we can get everything back together for our retirees and whatnot. Great to see everybody and look forward to opening today. Look forward to taking your teacher orientation tomorrow morning. I'll see you at Central Office.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so that brings us to comments from the general public. So if there's anyone here in person that would like to speak, you're more than welcome to come up to the table to be recognized. I'm not sure if
Shane and
there's
Melissa are going to have the opportunity to speak later.
I'm not sure if there's anyone online, but if there is, if you could please just put your name into the chat to be recognized.
There is no one online besides Tom at this time.
Alrighty then, so seeing no one in the room, no movement, and no one online, we shall move on to the approval of minutes. We have open session minutes from June 8th, 2026.
Okay, I move that we approve the open session minutes from June 6, 2026.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then we have meeting minutes from the policy subcommittee on August 10th, 2026.
Move to approve the policy subcommittee meeting minutes on August 10th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually,
No, we can't.
yes, we're going to abstain.
Oh.
It's just Jackie and Bill that are going to approve. That's okay. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Katie, Kelly, and myself, Gina. Thank you very much. And then I know we have the meeting minutes for the appointing committee for the OC school committee on here, but we will not be approving those tonight. Those are approved by the OC school committee as body. So that will bring us to communications and Reed's collaborative quarterly report.
Just going to hold for 1 second. I have
Okay.
one person in the room. I can't get into the room. So, Gina, I don't know if you can help me with this. I'm not sure why. I said to Gina today, I'm like, I feel like sometimes we go away from meets for a little bit. I haven't been on a meet in 6 weeks, and sometimes the controls are a little different. Right now, there's one person, Alex Young, who I can't bring into the room for some reason. Yeah, I don't know. I can't bring him into the room. Need someone actually here for one of our later presentations.
Okay.
He's going to assist Ron possibly. So we have 25 minutes to figure out how to get him into the room.
Okay.
Can you make me an...
I'll make you a co-host, and you can play with it a little bit, Gina. Let's see. Maybe I got him. All right. There we go. They're coming in now. It's just a little different setup. And we should be good now. Sorry about that.
No worries at all.
Yeah, so there are two communications here. One is Reed's Collaborative Quarterly Report, which is just a document that the school committee gets on a regular basis, one-page overview of what happened in the fourth quarter. The only thing I would point out in here is just we'll recognize the students from Reed's who graduate in June. So Reed's Academy had recently graduated 8 students. One of the graduates is entering the United States Marine Corps. Another one is enrolled at Bridgewater State University. The others are applying to the workforce. And then the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program had 5 graduates, 2 are headed to college, 2 to the workforce, and one of the students is going to be going to the Deaf and Hard of Hearing transition program called the READY program. So otherwise there's some other information there about their strategic priorities for the upcoming year, and just a general overview. And then the second communication was just, I gave you a copy of the welcome back letter that was sent to all staff.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so that brings us right into reports from the superintendent. And very long personnel updates.
So as always over the summer, there's been a lot of personnel movement. So we'll just go through our resignations, transfers, and new hires since last time we met. Resignations: Erin Young, math teacher, department chair at Carver Middle High School. Anna Califf, reading specialist at the elementary school. Haley Cobb is a food service utility worker at the middle high school. Caitlin Fisk as an ESP special education at the elementary school. Kimberly Lee, administrative assistant at the elementary school. And Jennifer Williams, lunch recess monitor at the elementary school. We've had some people who have made some transitions, so we have some transfers. Jasvia McIntosh from math department to math department chair. Catherine Miller from RBT at the elementary school to special education teacher at the elementary school. Alexandra Carrero from physics teacher to biology teacher at the middle high school. Rebecca Perry from ESP to book collection, long-term sub. Rebecca Perry from ESP in the book collection to long-term sub 5th grade at the elementary school. Justine Carpenter from office clerk to administrative assistant security desk at the elementary school. And Janice Bennett from ESP to Title I interventionist to reading specialist at the elementary school. That's a .5 position that replaces Anna Califf's retirement. And then we've had several new hires. Isabella Avery, long-term sub at the book collection at the elementary school. Isabella King is an ESP in special education at the middle high school. Alexandra Smith is a .5 music teacher at the middle high school. Dan Schneider is a .5 video production teacher at the middle high school. Trina Camaro as a literacy coach at the elementary school. Patricia Sayao as an ESP in special education at the elementary school. Caitlin Flippin as an ESP special education pre-K at the elementary school. Amanda Nason, special education teacher at the elementary school. Ashley Ness as the speech and language pathology assistant at the elementary school. Gloria Cardozo Santos as our Portuguese Spanish teacher at the middle high school. Jeffrey Wolf, custodian second shift at the middle high school. Sean Geary as a physics teacher at the middle high school. Alex Severia as a grade 5 teacher at the elementary school. Janet Jolly as a math teacher at the middle high school. Erin Peterson as an ESP special education at the elementary school. Patrick Crump as an ESP special education at the elementary school. Casey Pacheco is an ESP special education teacher at the elementary school. And Andrea Leveroni is an ESP bus monitor for an out-of-district placement. Historically, our new teachers we invite to the first meeting in September, so we'll keep that tradition. So for our meeting in September, I think it's September 14th, we'll invite all of our new teachers and introduce them to the school committee.
Great, thank you.
Busy summer.
Yes.
It's always busy.
Okay, so next that brings us to professional development review by John.
So John's going to give us an update on the first couple days of school. And let me pull that up and share it.
And like a lot of people are saying, it's amazing how quickly the summer goes.
But the leadership team, the principals, the assistant principals, Director Leary, Special Ed Director Melissa Leary, Scott, Ron, everybody worked all summer to collaborate and come up with a plan for the first couple of days to welcome teachers back, get the schools ready, and get them to jump right into the school year. So we begin on Monday, and really we didn't do it on purpose, but as I sort of looked at those 2 days, it's really about preparation and training and collaboration. PTC, but everything everything connects to those couple areas, those couple buckets. So we start on Monday. The whole faculty, district-wide faculty, will be at the high school, where Superintendent Neef will welcome everyone back. His motto is focus for this year is "This will be the year," and he'll go into that a little bit more in depth. I don't know if you want to, Scott, but that'll be a theme for this year, and our teachers are already looking forward to it.
Yeah, so it's this year, you can see the second thing, we do have a guest speaker this year, sort of an outside person presenting, Jimmy Cassis. So I'm not going to try to steal too much of Jimmy's thunder on the first day. Usually I kind of take the lead on the first day, but since we're having an outside presenter come, my piece will be small, but I'll introduce that concept of this is the year of great, and then there's some dots. People are going to have to fill in their own blanks of why this is going to be a great year for them as students, as teachers, as members of the school committee, why it's going to be a great year for you, and why, about all the great things that are happening here in the Carver Public Schools. So that's a quick, big picture overview of what the message will be.
Mm-hmm. And then, as Scott said, the Jimmy Cassis, who's a really nationally recognized speaker and former principal, will talk about some of his experiences and his lessons as he transformed different school environments and really successful school cultures throughout the country. Part of his message is, I've never seen him speak, but as I've read about him, is that idea of being a champion for all students. And being a champion means being empathetic, but it also means not lowering your expectations, helping students be successful. So I think it's going to resonate with people really well and get both the day and the school year off to a really good start.
Yeah, our goal with Jimmy is he's going to be motivational and inspirational for our staff, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And then the remainder of the 31st, the afternoon after lunch, preparation. That night will be open house, so I know the elementary school classroom teachers will be busy readying their classrooms and getting materials ready and connecting as teams to really prepare for parents and students and really present a positive, it's easy for them to be positive and optimistic, but a really welcoming environment. So the afternoon will be about getting ready for that. Training, our ESPs in both buildings, they're going to be working with folks from Reed's Collaborative on different practices that will help kids be more successful. And then collaboration at the middle high school, the various departments and then the teams in the middle school meet to collaborate on things like group goals and priorities and how the year is going to work, especially with new folks. And then the leadership team from both buildings will be able to meet in a small group setting with Jimmy Cassis to continue talking about improving school culture. So it should be a really great day. Second day is really focused on training, and both schools are using a similar sort of paradigm, like a setup with an educational carousel. Both schools will have a number of rooms set aside where trainers, their teachers, their administrators, they'll be providing teaching to teachers as they revolve through the carousel. And the elementary school, I don't know if you can see it, they're covering things like responsive classroom, the toolbox project, trauma-sensitive practices, executive functioning. There's a new platform that teachers would use in the classroom called Bloxy. And then the nurses would provide Yeah, EpiPen trainings, updates on things teachers need to know. But really the focus of the elementary school is supporting the SEL needs of students.
I have a question
Yeah.
about that. The EpiPen training, didn't the law change in that only the school nurse could do it?
Not aware of that, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's my knowledge. I think anybody can administer an EpiPen.
Okay.
So I'll do some research, I am
Yeah,
not
'cause
aware
we
of
had
that.
some
Maybe
changes.
maybe that's what they told you, I am not aware of
Well, I
that.
don't know, like, I just know we had changes at the collaborative, so I don't know,
Yeah, that's,
and maybe I misunderstood the reasoning.
Mm.
That's possible, but,
yeah. No, double check.
Yeah, to my understanding, so,
okay.
People can still
Which
do
to
it.
me, it makes sense that anyone can do it, but I just, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Middle high school focus would be on, there'll be sessions set up for special ed programming and 504s, supporting students on IEPs, as well as 504s. Administration will provide operational updates, like changes in rules or practices within the building. Inclusivity and ADL, the initiatives, the groups, changes that were made around those subjects. Deeper learning, and the middle high school for the last year or so has worked on integrating deeper learning practices into their instruction, and we can just, it's a meeting about continuing that and taking it to the next level. Members of the faculty who have worked on environmental and recycling issues will help get their colleagues up and running, and then once again the nurses have provided a training as well. So that's the first part of the second day. We're all going to be doing a lot of learning and experiencing new things as we learn from colleagues. The afternoon, a lot of collaboration at the elementary school as they break out into either grade bandwidths or departments, studying things like the virtual training on the phonics program, UFly, math and STEM, as well as ELA will break out and work on those subjects. Allied arts and counselors are going to work on individual professional development plans for the year, which is kind of a newer approach. The special ed faculty members will be providing training for allied arts teachers about supporting high-need students. There'll be a webinar from Mass Partnerships for pre-K teachers as well as counselors, and ESPs are going to work with the building administration about operational issues and changes. And then at the middle high school, they'll break into departments and teams to get ready for classrooms, but also share instructional materials. There are a number of people teaching new classes, so you're always trying to get ready and make sure that when the first kids walk in the next day, that you have everything you need, you're fully provisioned. And then the ESPs also have a similar meeting. So it's really 2 really full days of preparation and training and lots and lots of collaboration between the teachers. So it should be a great start.
Looks great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm exhausted already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next that brings us to the educational blueprint.
I'm getting there, it's almost up. There it is. No, it's a little small on the screen, but we always like to take some time before school starts in August to review our core strategic objectives, the educational blueprint. If you remember, not this past year, the year before, we actually went through a whole process to revise and update the strategic objectives, which the school committee actually voted in June of 2025. So those core objectives are still the same. Generally, the thought process of those objectives would be in place for 2 to 5 years. So in a year or so, we'll probably look at that again. Though what we do update on a yearly basis is some of the strategies, some of the specific things that are happening in the school community. And I think it is important to just lay out this vision for the community of what we stand for as a school. So I'm actually going to read the vision statement, the core values, the objectives themselves, and then I'll highlight some of the strategies that have changed from last time we met. Vision statement. The Carver School community is dedicated to continuous improvement and will collaborate to promote high standards to ensure all students become empowered learners and responsible citizens through a comprehensive curriculum that inspires students to learn and think critically in a safe, supportive, and inclusive environment. What are our core values? All students can be successful. Learning is ongoing and lifelong. Decisions should be made in the best interest of students. Everyone should be treated with dignity and respect. And school, home, and community partnerships are vital for the continuous learning and growth. And our 4 objectives that we've set out to continue to expand on to support our core values in our vision statement are support safe schools, which is to sustain a safe, supportive, and inclusive learning environment focused on students' overall wellness by addressing the physical, social, emotional, and behavioral needs of all students to maximize their capacity to achieve. We want to enhance teaching and learning to sustain a system-wide environment where an exceptional instruction and student achievement are the core of our work and realized through collaborative action. Engage the community to foster relationships with the community so that parents and the community members are engaged partners in the educational process. And collaborate with leadership in policy and funding. To collaborate with leaders at the local, state, and federal level to maintain sustainable funding and support initiatives to ensure the highest level of student achievement. And everything that we do in the district should be able to tie back to these 4 core things. We should be able to say, if this is happening in the district, we can put it under one of these 4 buckets. Support safe schools, enhancing teaching and learning, engaging the community, or collaborating with leadership, policy, and funding. The school improvement plans are aligned directly with the educational blueprint using the same core objectives. And then some of the strategies here that are listed, it's not every item that's in both school improvement plans, but what I have the administrative team do is go through and highlight ones that they think are a particular focus for them. And there's some changes here. So I just want to highlight a couple of the changes under each one of the objectives. The first one under support safe schools, it's the last 2 bullets. Provide teachers, students with training on effective use of AI in order to increase students' independence, engagement, and ownership of learning. So AI is going to be a huge focus in terms of our professional development this year. Our full day of PD in November is actually going to be some AI training for all middle high school teachers. And the elementary school is going to have half day. And then we actually have another half day as well. So the middle high school is going to have a full day and half day. The elementary school is going to have a half day. Not that AI doesn't impact the elementary school as much, but it just doesn't. It's a little more prevalent in terms of its use, its functionality, and student use. Though I'm sure there's some first grader out there who is using AI to do a wide variety of things. And ultimately, it's interesting how quickly the transition is made. So when AI first came out, which is often the case with many new things, there was a little bit of, hey, we can't let students use that. And that's quickly shifted to it's a reality piece, it's a tool that exists. And I've always been a huge believer that our responsibility as a school district is to make students aware of the tools that exist and teach them how to use them ethically and appropriately. And obviously there's some real challenges with that in regards to AI. But the focus of our professional development this year for our teachers is really going to be around, and for our students, is really going to be around how to use it productively, effectively, and safely. And what are the guardrails, and then make students aware of the dangers that do exist in AI, and make sure they're not falling into some of those traps. There's a lot of tough questions from, obviously the use of video and images, and how students are using videos and images, and then just being it's tougher to be a good consumer of the information you receive. But we've always taught that, going back 30 years ago as a social studies teacher, was always, okay, we gotta look at the credibility of our sources. Now people just have to do that at a much higher level because the information that comes to them all the time, they always have to ask themselves that question, is this real or is this fake? And how can I tell this might be AI generated? And it's something we all struggle with. So we're going to be taking on some of those challenges. We're not in the phase of, okay, AI is bad and don't use it. I think we've already transitioned to, okay, let's make sure we can use it effectively, proficiently, and safely. So that's a big bullet under support safe schools. And really, AI could be certainly in the enhanced teaching and learning section, but I think it makes sense for it to be under the safe schools, because I think there are some real safety issues around the use of AI that we have to be really cognizant of in terms of our students' social, emotional health and well-being. And then the second thing that was added, the last bullet, continue to provide, it's the second part of this one. I know the first piece is continue. Continue to provide professional development for staff and educational program for students focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Expand efforts to include anti-Semitism awareness, cultural sensitivity, and restorative practices through targeted training and partnerships with organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League. The admin team actually did some training with the ADL over the summer. They have some really great resources in regards to that whole concept of restorative justice. So students who might be involved in any kind of biased incident or any kind of anti-Semitic incident, they have like training modules available for students that they could do an in-school suspension or do in some sort of, or as part of their discipline package, could be these educational pieces. And the ADL has some really great stuff out there. And it's not all about anti-Semitism. You know, some of the ADL stuff has a broader approach to just bias in general. You know, obviously some of the things are specifically towards anti-Semitism, because that's what they do in terms of addressing anti-Semitism. But they've taken a wider approach. And so we've done some work with them, and we're excited about having the opportunity to use some of that with our students in terms of supporting a safe school environment. Any questions about those two? No? Enhanced teaching and learning, it's not totally a theme that's the last two, but it seems to feel that way. The new ones are kind of down towards the bottom. We talked about this a little bit. We've started this process, established dual enrollment opportunities for college-bound students through partnerships with surrounding and area local colleges. We had to start with Bridgewater State University. They're actually taking a pause. We thought we had reached agreement with Bridgewater State actually to do a specific dual enrollment program with them. And they're taking a step back in terms of what they're offering to all districts, not just to us. And they're reevaluating it. We have a meeting set up coming up with Massasoit Community College. We're going to stay with Bridgewater and see what they do over this year. I think that in terms of the expanding opportunities that we're offering students, we've been ahead of the curve. We've been a leader in terms of pathways programming. There are other districts that are ahead of us in terms of dual enrollment, and those are kind of like the dual pushes that are happening in terms of giving students experiences that are going to prepare them for career in college. So I'd like to build up that dual enrollment piece. So that's something we're going to be working on this year. And then this is also something we'll continue to work on. We hear a lot from the community about that transition from 5th to 6th grade. So strength and support for 6th grade students and families during the transition to middle school through professional development focused on vertical alignment, collaboration, shared understanding of expectations between elementary and middle high school staff. So that's a new bullet that's on the larger educational blueprint. Engage the community. Something we started last year, but we want to build on. So we did our first alumni outreach last year, and we want to keep that going. So the last bullet of continue to develop an alumni organization, communicate with our graduates in order to foster relationships between alumni and current students. Our alumni, the alumni of the Carver Public Schools, are a tremendous resource. And we want to make sure that that's a resource that we're starting to tap into. And I think we've just scratched the surface on that, and we're looking to expand that in the coming year. And then the last one, to collaborate with leadership in policy and funding, establish a Chromebook replacement cycle to maintain student access to appropriate devices. So it's an issue we've been grappling with. That was hoisted upon us a little bit this year because we had purchased all those Chromebooks with COVID monies that were available. And then the bad thing about that was we bought many grade levels of Chromebooks, and they all kind of came to end life at the same time. So as you know, through capital, through our own investment eventually. It was originally as a capital proposal, then through our own investment we were able to do 3, and actually it turned out we have enough devices to do 4 grade levels of Chromebook replacements this year. So 8, 9, 10, 11 are getting brand new Chromebooks. We're going through that process. Students are coming in and getting the new Chromebooks right now. Over the past couple of weeks, they've been trained in the old one and getting a new one. But it's something that we're going to have to continue to look at because actually going back to the concept of AI, what the guts that these computers need to manage the AI is making Chromebooks more expensive. There was actually an article, in, I think it was in June, that Ron had shared to me. I think it was Ron shared with me. I don't know if I shared it with Ron. One way or the other. There was a sharing of an article. We shared something. There was really, there was a school district that actually found it was cheaper to buy MacBooks than Chromebooks. Because the guts and need and the Chromebooks are actually more expensive. Now, I'm not making a pitch to move towards MacBooks or anything like that. It was just an interesting concept that price is rising. So that's going to present a challenge for the school district as we move forward. 5, 10 years about one-to-one, what does one-to-one look like, and the cost that's associated with that. So I think that's something we're going to have to look at in terms of collaborating with leadership, policy, and funding. And then the other ones here, there's been no action on this over the summer. I really thought there would be. Establish a cell phone policy in accordance with state laws and building and implement that policy. I still think that's going to happen during this year. I think that legislation will pass. I was really surprised there was no action on it over the summer. So we're in no place different than we were in May and June. I think it was May or June when we presented about this. But I think that I still think it's coming. And I think we're going to have to plan during this year to look at establishing a cell phone policy in accordance with the law that's passed. So that's a big picture update in terms of some of the strategic objectives that we have. And obviously the big picture of, as the Carver Public Schools, we want to be about supporting safe schools, enhancing teaching and learning, engaging our community, and collaborating with all of the local, state, federal resources to make sure that we have the funding we need as a school district. With that, I'll take any questions or comments or thoughts. Not looking at, we don't necessarily need to vote to approve the educational blueprint.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you for the update. I appreciate the growth. It's a living, breathing document, so it's always good to take another gander at it. Yeah, very exciting. So, recommended graduation requirements.
All right.
This is
This is also going to be this is a new burgeoning topic
Yeah.
that there'll be a lot more discussion about over the next
yeah, Jackie, good luck.
over the next few years.
You will experience them firsthand.
All right, so I'll give you a little bit of background on this, and I think the community knows this background, but in November of 2024, Massachusetts voters passed Question 2, eliminating the 10th grade MCAS exam as a mandatory statewide graduation requirement. As a result of the passage of Question 2 in 2024 and the elimination of the MCAS exam as a graduation requirement, Governor Healy signed an executive order establishing a K-12 statewide graduation council, saying, okay, we have to look as a state at what does graduation mean. If you graduate from high school, this is what it looks like. So that's the background that led to this happening. So as I said, the council was established as a result of the ballot question. They've been meeting since January of 2025, so this process was over a year and a half. Last December, the council released its interim report, which included initial recommendations, which I believe I presented at our January meeting. We started to talk about that. The final report was issued right as we were leaving school. About a week before school ended, the final report came out. And I'm going to go over everything, the key points of what's in the final report. And where do we stand right now in terms of what we're currently doing, and where are we going to have to do some work over the next year or so in terms of meeting these new stated graduation requirements. I do want to point out that last bullet though. Consistent with Governor Healy's executive order, this report is intended to inform policy decisions by the governor and the legislature. So we have to be really clear, this is not the law. I think people are hearing this and seeing this and say, okay, this is what it's going to be. And there's a real good chance this is what it's going to be. But they acknowledge in the report that some of this is going to require some legislation. And so there's going to be, this might even change, it might change from what I'm presenting today. My sense is there's a general consensus to support this, except for the biggest challenge being the end of course assessments. And we'll get into that. And whether that needs legislation for that to go forward, and I think that's where the biggest resistance is going to be, because it seems to people to be too much like the MCAS exam. But we'll talk about that a little bit. So the first thing they did, the Governor's Council, and the Governor's Council, it was in the slide before, included teachers and parents and community members and business leaders and legislators, and it was a wide-ranging council that represented all groups, special education, everyone's at the table, MTA, everyone's there. And they said, well, we have to start with almost making a vision of the graduate. So the council established a foundational vision based on, we think that we need our graduates to be thinkers, contributors, and leaders. And then they give their definition of what those topics are. They also developed a vision of the graduate, which actually is very tied to or related to our vision of the graduate. So I put the Governor's Council's vision of the graduate next to the Carver Middle High School vision of the graduate. And you'll see a lot of overlap. I'm looking at the screen going, it's a little tough to read up there. But we'll read better in your background presentations. Effective communicators in both. Collaborative teammates or intentional collaborators are in both. Global citizenship, responsible decision making, that ties to responsible individuals. You see a lot of overlap, and I think that's a good thing, that our vision of the graduate, I think in many ways aligns with their big picture of the vision of the graduate for all graduates within the state of Massachusetts. And they also said, we're going to take a conceptual framework here. We want to talk about learning experiences, students being able to show mastery, and students being able to be college and career ready. So they said, these are going to be the things that drive our decisions to these recommendations. So the vision of the graduate, this conceptual framework of learning experiences showing mastery in college and career readiness, that kind of drove the final results of this report. So what's the framework? Basically, it's what they're calling 4 strategic pillars. And we're going to go through each one of the 4 strategic pillars. And then there's a 5th. There's an add-on. It's a dangling participle. It's number 5. Number 5 is not here, but we'll talk about it. So from the report itself, these are the 4 strategic pillars, the Mass Core, end of the course assessments, MyCaps, and what they're calling a capstone or portfolio project. So let's talk about the Mass Core first. What is that? So starting in the report, their recommendation is that starting with the class, the fall of 2027, which is next year, our current 8th graders, the graduating class of 2031, would have to meet the Mass Core. The Mass Core is 4 years of English in high school, 4 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of history, 1 year of PE, equivalent of a year, 1 year of arts courses, and then 5 other elective courses. And they actually specifically mention that in theory, the Mass Core, the 5 courses are supposed to be tied back to English, Math, Science, and Social Studies, which they generally are anyhow. But they actually put there, or tied back to a pathway. So if you have a innovation pathway in art, for example, right? Technically, another art course besides the 2 you have to take doesn't tie back to English, Math, Science, Social Studies. But they're saying as long as it's in a pathway, then that would count as elective courses you can take. The thing I skipped is the thing we don't do. Okay, so if we do right now, our current graduation requirements have 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, physical education, 2 semester courses or a full year of an arts course, and 5 electives, including pathways. So our graduates already meet all of this standard. Where a few students don't, and we're working on getting the numbers, is a requirement of 2 years of a foreign language. So right now, that is not a graduation requirement. The majority of our students do take majority of our students take more than 2 years of a foreign language. They're taking 3 or 4. But there are some students who don't take 2 years of a foreign language. So this would be a change in requirements for us. There's 2 things I want to point out on this one. Is number 1, if you are a native speaker of if you come to us as an EL student or an ML student, and you're a native speaker, that counts as your 2-year foreign language requirement. You do not have to meet this part of the Mass Core. There was some question about that, but I've confirmed that that is accurate. And then the second piece is if you attend a vocational school, not related to us, if you offer Chapter 74 programs. So if you're enrolled in a Chapter 74 program like Old Colony, then you don't have to meet the 2-year foreign language because they're saying they realize the reality of there's not enough time. You don't have enough space because you're focused on the vocation you have more dedicated time on that vocation to take 2 years of a foreign language. So the exemptions for this are if you're a vocation, I shouldn't say at a vocational school, if you're enrolled in a Chapter 74 program. There are some high schools that offer Chapter 74 programs that aren't vocational schools. Silver Lake does that. So then those students wouldn't have to meet the 2 years of a foreign language requirement. So that's going to be our challenge, but not a huge hurdle for us. I think we'll be able to do it within our current staffing. That's the first question of, well, if more kids need to take foreign language, do we need more foreign language teachers? And it's such a small percentage. I've asked guidance, because like I said, this just happened at the end of school. Guidance just came back this week. I've asked them, once they're settled, to go back over the last 3 years and give us the percentage of students or the number of students who would not meet the current math score. I think it's going to be a pretty small number, so I think we'll be able to manage that piece. Anything on the math score?
No, we're just fortunate that that's all that we're not meeting right now, because there are several districts out there that have a lot of hurdles ahead of them to
Meet the math score.
complying with this, just to meet the math score piece.
End of course assessments, which as I said, I think is going to be the most challenging one. I think that's where the state's going to get the most pushback. So the proposal is that it will include end of the course assessments in 1 English class, 1 math class, 1 science class. History is a question mark. Like the report actually says, history question mark. So they are undetermined whether you're going to require a history course. They haven't stated what the courses are yet. So in other settings, I've made some guesses what I believe the courses are going to be. I'm not going to do that here this evening and guess what I think the courses will be. Though they are saying they'll be in 9th and 10th grade. Because the concept is here, they want you to finish your end of course assessments by the end of 10th grade, and then have 11th and 12th grade focus on your portfolio, your capstone project. And then this will replace the MCAS exam. So once this is fully operational, we will no longer offer high school MCAS exams. The third bullet or line is really the key one. Students don't have to pass these exams to graduate. Results will meaningfully count towards the student's academic record and graduation progress. So in essence, I think they're going to accept that you count it as their final exam. So the challenge here, which everyone's concerned about, is these are going to be state-administered scored and designed. So you look at the second bullet. State-administered score. So the state's going to give these. Right now, they're saying they believe they're going to be able to turn these around in a couple weeks. Because you have to worry about that timing piece. If it's going to count meaningfully towards the student's progress towards graduation, if you're, let's say one of the courses is 10th grade English, and it counts as your final, then the student needs to get a grade. They need to know their grade to finalize 10th grade English. So do they take the test in April and the state's going to get it back to us in June? And is that really an end of the course assessment if they take it in April or March? The state is saying, I think there's a lot of people who will question whether this is realistic, or it means it's going to be all multiple choice on some level, or it's going to be AI scored, they're saying that you might be able to give these exams in May, get the results back in the middle of June, and have it count as their final exam. But the key component here is the student doesn't have to pass this. So if they're doing well on 10th grade English and they don't do well on this exam, they're most likely still going to pass 10th grade English. And you've met the requirement of it counts meaningfully towards graduation. And then there might be some students who are on the line in 10th grade English, and this could make a difference whether or not they pass 10th grade English. And if they didn't pass 10th grade English, then my assumption would be it'd be like everything else. They'll just have to make up 10th grade English. If they don't pass 10th grade English now, they got to do it in summer school. They got to repeat the course. The question will be, will they have to repeat the end of the course assessment? That will be an interesting question. So questions about end of course assessments. More information to come. We don't know what the courses are yet. Hopefully there'll be some definition of that within the next couple of months, because we have to start planning for that. This is my timeline's at the end. This is for 7th graders. So current 7th grade students are going to be required, the class of 2032, are going to have to pass the end of the course assessments or have their end of course assessments count meaningfully towards their academic record and graduation progress. I shouldn't say pass, because that's the wrong message. So we'll repeat, count towards their students' academic record and graduation progress. So these are going to be administered, not this spring, not in the spring of 27, but they will be administered in the spring of 2028. So when those 7th graders are in 9th grade, they're going to take 1 or 2 of those assessments. The third piece is MyCap. So MyCap, we already have MyCaps. We have students who do a MyCap. Every student at Carver High School does MyCap. So we already have this piece in place. The piece we don't have in place is the state's actually identifying what they're calling MyCap milestones. And the milestones would be in financial literacy, AI knowledge, work-based competencies, knowledge of the FAFSA, and civic competency. The financial literacy was a big discussion because people really wanted it to be part of the Mass Core. They wanted it to be a class that students had to take to graduate. But the problem with the Mass Core is this is a lot of classes. And it became that fear of, well, if we make financial literacy, if we make finance a course they have to take 2, we're limiting other initiatives like pathways. It would be all of a sudden start to become challenging maybe for a student to do everything they need to do in a pathway if there's all these things they have to pass. So instead, they went with this concept of a milestone. What does a milestone mean? This is where we as a district are going to have a lot of say. We're going to develop what the milestone is. So for example, there's a program that some schools run through their guidance department called Credit for Life. And it's like a one-day institute on all things personal finance. The students have to go through an experience of purchasing a car, getting a loan, those types of ideas, investing for the future. And it's like a one-day experience. The thought process on that is, so you could, in theory, my understanding is you could say running Credit for Life for your juniors is a MyCap milestone. That would check that off. AI knowledge is probably going to be just embedded in a lot of our coursework. Work-based competency is interesting because obviously we have a strong internship program and 75% of our students do an internship. That certainly meets it. But that means 25% don't, or 20% don't do an internship. And I'll actually read their definition. Work-based learning can be defined broadly, including, for example, internships, apprenticeships, cooperative education programs, community service experiences, field-based projects. So they're saying you can say it's a work-based competency if someone has to go through a process where they have to take on the concept of, I'm going to be an architect. And I'm going to go meet with an architect and have to do a report about what does it mean to be an architect. That type of project could count as your work-based competency. It doesn't have to be an internship. Work-based simulations or other career-connected opportunities. So we're going to have to define what that looks like exactly. Knowledge of the FAFSA we already do. Everybody has a MyCap. Everyone goes to a course called Junior Workshop. They learn about the FAFSA, how to do it. And then we already have a civic competency with about 25 hours of community service. But that could be something different. So we're going to get to define these. I think we're going to have to submit a plan to DESE, and they're going to have to sign off and approve the plan for each of these competencies or milestones in your MyCap. But we're going to have a little say in what those look like. So any questions about MyCap? This is a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff. Again, I just want to say that we are so fortunate that our district already has a lot of this in place and that it's not going to be...
Yeah, we're pretty close right now, work-based
Yeah.
competency. FAFSA definitely we're done. Civic competency we're done. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to change it and do something
Yeah.
different,
Yep.
but right now we could check off those things as they already exist in the Carver Public Schools.
Yeah.
AI knowledge and financial literacy would have to define a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm just grateful that we are where we are and that we have MyCap already and some of these already in place because, I mean, clearly everyone can see how much this is a lot of work. And of course, there's no funding attached to any of this.
There is not. And then the final piece is every student will have to complete a capstone or a portfolio project. This is, again, going to be the district's choice. So the district's going to have the opportunity to choose whether we have students do a senior capstone or a junior capstone that's supposed to incorporate, in theory, your capstone project would incorporate everything in your vision of a graduate. I don't know if it's going to be our vision of the graduate, the state's vision of the graduate, but they'd have to do a project where they can show they're self-aware navigators, intentional collaborators, responsible decision makers. They'll have to demonstrate these competencies through this project that they do in their junior or senior year. The other is a portfolio, which would be the same thing. The portfolio more likely would be throughout high school, 9 through 12, and giving examples of where you've met those standards of the vision of the graduate. This is going to be locally designed and scored using DESI's rubric. So DESI's going to establish the rubric and say, here's the scoring rubric. But you get to design your capstone or your portfolio. Now, this is the one we've done the least of. And there are other districts that already have a senior project or a capstone project that exists. We're going to have to start going, talking to some of those districts and start planning for this. Make our decision whether we're going to do capstone or portfolio, and then really establish the process of what this is going to look like. So we've just started talking about this as the administrative team, and at the middle high school, this was a part of all the department chairs came in last week for a day of training. So this discussion, we've started these discussions of really more our process of how we're going to make some of these decisions. So how are we going to make the decision whether it's a capstone or a portfolio? How are we going to make the decision of what does AI knowledge look like? What does financial literacy look like? So what are we going to putting together a team of teachers and administrators. My goal would be that by the end of the year, we'd be back here with hopefully any legislation that needs to pass will pass. We don't know. We'll see how that goes. And then we'll be back here in May or June, kind of like, okay, we'll probably give you updates as we go. But at the end, here's our proposal for these are the milestones in the MyCap. This is our capstone. Because the reality piece is it's our 7th grade students that are going to have to meet all these requirements. The dangling participle is they're going to establish what they're calling seals of distinction. These are the ones actually proposed in the report. A seal of biliteracy, which already exists in Massachusetts. If a student can prove that they are proficient in 2 languages, you can apply for a seal of biliteracy, which actually gets attached to your diploma. So all these things could be attached to your diploma. A seal of civic engagement, which we already have some stuff we could do with that. A seal of financial literacy, which is going to tie back to our financial milestone. A seal of AI, artificial intelligence. A seal of military readiness. A seal of artistic accomplishments. A seal of industry recognized credentials. So it's like we do OSHA certification right now. So so through some of our pathways programs, it might actually make sense for our pathways programs to pick an industry certification that aligns with them. Have students earn that industry certification, then they can earn the seal. What they're saying for the seals of biliteracy and why it's not listed here as a requirement, and why I'm calling it a dangling participle, it's not the milestone like number 5, is there's no requirement that students earn any seals of distinction. The requirement's going to be that a school district has the processes in place for the school to offer 5. So this is their initial proposal. This has become very popular in other states. Some states have 12, 14, 16. Maybe there's going to be one in the culinary arts. That's a good chain. Special education. So the state's going to build out more seals. And then as a district, you're going to have to pick 5 that you're going to make available to your students. But it's not a graduation requirement because no student's going to be required to earn one. So that's not going to be part of graduation. But they're putting it as part of this process in terms of being college and career ready. Okay. So timeline, I kind of already laid out timeline. Final recommendations were given. Fall of 2027, class of 2030 enters 9th grade. They're going to have to be the first ones to have to meet the Mass Core. It's current 8th grade students. Class of 2032 has to do everything else. So they go. It's a 2-year implementation phase. Is the our current 8th graders have to do the Mass Core. Our current 7th graders have to do all 4. They're going to have to go back to here and do Mass Core, and of course assessments, my cap, some sort of capstone or portfolio project. And by that point, we're going to have to be prepared to offer them 5 seals of distinction. Yeah, so there's definitely some work to be done here.
Yep.
It's going to be a focus of some of our professional development, some of our learning time this year. And we're going to be establishing some committees at the middle high school to try to start to answer some of these questions. What questions do you have for me? I know it's a lot.
Anyone have any questions?
We have some class of 2032 represented here.
We do?
Some people are going to have
Yes,
to be
we
back.
do.
Yep.
Yay.
Yep.
Yeah, so more information to come. This is the initial presentation.
Yeah, let's hope some funding tied to some of the work that's going to have to
Yeah,
go into
even
this.
funding from the standpoint of, excuse me, putting teams of people together to work on this. You know, some grant funding to pay professionals for their time to develop some of these plans, I think would be valuable.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of that. Okay, so that brings us to the food service presentation.
Yep, so we're excited to have Shane Reardon, our food service director here. Good evening. Shane had to listen to me for 45 minutes. I was ready to go. Shane, just give me a second to pull up.
Yep.
And we're just going to give us an update on some of the exciting things that are happening in food services over the past year and into the future.
Nice. I know the burning question.
There's a burning question?
Will there be a gingerbread house
I don't know.
in the lobby?
I don't
pressure
know.
on
I don't know if there'll be one as big, but I know there are talks of doing some smaller ones, just based on logistics of moving that one around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just have an update kind of on, I started in January of this year. So my time here in Carver. So have an agenda, and we'll start with the big project that happened in food service this summer, which was the middle high school. We got a new wonderful freezer and walk-in cooler. We had a crew of people from Jenko Services that were out for the last 5-6 weeks, putting in a freezer and demolishing the old one. So if you see up here, there's some pictures of mid-construction. You know, they taped everything off to reduce the amount of cleaning that we had to do, which we were happy about. A lot of dust, a lot of jackhammering, a lot of removing of materials and new floors going in, new subfloors. You can see in the picture they had to put a lot of cement down for the area of the new box. If you go to the next page, there's some more progress with the new cooler. They put the new cooler in what was our dry storage room, which was very large. And now, you know, I was a little skeptic looking at the drawings, but actually when it came in and seeing that it in the space, it works really good. We've spent the last few days setting up that area, so it's very functional. Nice new coolers with alarms, and they're not sweating and leaking. Hold the temp very well. And then we more than doubled the size of the freezer, which was a big issue for storage. We used to do a lot of juggling of commodity items and items that would get in that had to be frozen and held. We have to take them at certain times based on the DOD's time frame. So sometimes we have to take large sums of product in, and with a small freezer it was difficult. A lot of shuffling and moving around. So now we have a very large freezer and a good size walk-in cooler still. So
And did you say you got a shipment today? And
we did,
it was
yeah.
easy.
Today, it was very easy, yeah. They are able to actually, we used to have to kind of stage the product outside of the freezer and then hand truck it in, everyone, and now they're able to deliver it right inside, and we can organize and sort it, so be a lot more efficient and a better system for storing and organizing our product.
Ron, do you mind if I put you on the spot just to give the school community and the community just a reminder on how this project was funded?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one of the things that, so first of all, kudos to Shane and his predecessor, Teresa, as well. Carver's been super fortunate. We've had incredible food service leadership, and you need that leadership to do these kinds of projects. Food service in general, Massachusetts is funded through primarily through a federal pass-through. It's a combination of federal dollars and state dollars, but ultimately no local dollars get put toward your food service sort of operation year to year. Later in the meeting, we'll talk a little bit about the budget at the state level. Universal Meals in Massachusetts contributes that resource as well. It's particularly important that we have those resources for the middle high school because the infrastructure there is just older. A lot of that hardware had been failing, and so thanks to the federal money and the state money over the past couple of years, we've been able to go through a bunch of those sets of equipment. The walk-in cooler being one of the largest pieces of equipment that the team uses every single day. So entirely federally and state funded, not locally funded. And anytime we have a project that we're queuing up, like you do at home, we sort of save up for a few years before we make these big moves. Thank you.
Yep. So the other big thing that occurred last December was the DESE administrative review. So basically, a DESE administrative review is a formal review on site that I believe we had one auditor that came out and spent a couple days. They look at all your paperwork, all your reimbursements, how you're categorizing and how you're deciding if meals are free, reduced, or paid, even though right now in Massachusetts everyone is free. But they'll watch meal service, make sure that everyone's meeting the requirements of the ingredients that are need to be part of a complete meal. They will look at your paperwork and make sure that you're recording everything. They'll look at your ordering, make sure that you're ordering the correct items that meet the requirements nutritionally. And then they'll look at pretty much every aspect of the program to make sure that we're operating within the guidelines of the state and federal requirements. So in Massachusetts currently, they happen every 5 years for each district, and they'll pick one site. This year they picked the elementary school, and we did really well. They came out, I think there was several findings, overall very minimal findings. A couple of the findings that they had were the meal modification policy needed to be posted and available publicly. The school food authority must have documentation on file demonstrating an assessment of the local wellness policies conducted every 3 years, and it's available to the public. The school food authority exceeds its net cash resources to an amount greater than 3 months' average expenditures. The meal charge policy prohibits students from attending or participating in non-fee-based activities solely because of a student's unresolved meal debt. And the school nutrition program director must have 12 hours of annual trainings or planned trainings for the remainder of the school year to meet the requirements. All of these findings we resolved, and then we submitted back to the state, and they were approved. I think on the next page.
If you remember, we did some of that we updated that policy last year in terms of meal modification and charging prohibiting students from attending or participating in events. So we did some of that work last year. Yeah,
and a few of these findings were just the location that they were posted weren't easily accessible, and I think the auditor couldn't find it because they do some of the stuff on site and some of the stuff off site. So we just posted them in a more visible place on the school website and easier to access. So the following steps that we took were we posted the meal modification on the school website. We posted the wellness assessment and school website meeting minutes on the website. We submitted updated food service account balance after we had done the middle high school refresh. And then we updated the meal charge policy to remove a line item that said that prohibited students from attending non-fee-based activities based on their balance of their account. We updated the school nutrition director's tracker for training to show that we had planned trainings that would have got us to the requirement by the end of the year. And we submitted these, and they were accepted by DESE. Okay.
That's great.
So Try It Tuesday is a program that we do in the elementary school, and we've expanded to the high school. Just showcasing different food items that we can try in the schools. So we continue that. Teresa had started that a few years ago prior to me. I've done it in other districts. Kids love trying samples. Teachers love trying samples. Everyone likes samples. So we tried some different things. Some of them went great, and we put them on the menu, and the kids liked them. Which buffalo chicken dip was the first one I did at the elementary school, which was kind of a surprise because my kids don't like anything spicy, but the kids liked it. We've kept it on the menu. It's been a hit. I don't know if it's just because the kids like the cheese and it's not super spicy, but the kids really liked it. Up at the high school, we sampled General Tso's chicken, and then they all voted that they wanted to keep it, so we've put that on the menu. Look forward to continuing that this school year and trying different things and having the kids decide if they wanted to stay on the menu or wanted to try different items.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I just want to give again a shout out to Shane on this. I think one of the things he's brought early on in his tenure is giving kids that voice and choice as part of their meals, right? And I think as parents, we appreciate that balance of you have to have a well-balanced meal. Some of you can't choose, but when you have that opportunity to choose, it makes them more engaged. It makes them want to go back for it. And he didn't mention those black bean brownies, but
Oh God, they were good.
they're good for you. They don't taste like black beans. They taste like
Yeah.
just brownies. And I'm a chocolate lover who was like super skeptical of it.
Yeah.
I had second if they were.
Yeah, they were super fudgy.
Yeah.
We also met with a couple different groups at the middle high school, the high school, and the elementary school to get some ideas of items that they'd want to see on the menu, and then able to incorporate those into the menu because we don't want to put out a product that they're not going to eat. So, kids can be picky and things change throughout the years. Another program that we ran last year was the Culinary Creations Club over at the elementary school with a group of about 10 fifth graders. We did a 6-week course where we made 6 different things, basically basic items that they can create at home. Simple snacks, healthy meals. Had a great turnout. We had a lot of fun. It was every Wednesday for 6 weeks for about 2 hours after school. And these are students that were staying after school anyways for extended day. So it gave them something to do that was fun. The kids really liked it. They got to tour the kitchen. It was mostly done in one of the, I forget what the room is called at the elementary schools, one of the
Gathering areas?
Yeah, like a gathering area, which kind of limited some of the items we were able to do, but we made smoothies, made macaroni and cheese, they made a cheese sauce, they cooked eggs, hard-boiled eggs, and then they scrambled eggs. We did yogurt parfaits, oatmeal protein cookies, and then we made pizza.
Yeah, you got to finish off with pizza.
We have to finish off with pizza. Our plan is to continue this this school year, but we're going to try to shift it more to the kitchen, so we can add a little more skills. Still going to be with the fifth graders because they're a little more competent with an open flame and a knife, and though we try to limit what they do, but we want to teach them that they can cook for themselves at home. Very basic, simple, healthy things. So we continued our hydroponic gardens at the middle high school. So these are Fork Farms growing towers. We have 8 of them at the middle high school, and then there's 2 at the elementary school. We mostly grew lettuce this past school year. We were able to supplement our what we put out on our salad bar every day. We usually got like 40 to 60 pounds when we'd harvest, and then which is it's a good amount. It was able to supplement. We go through a lot more than that in a month, but it's great to be able to have fresh produce. You can see it growing in the cafeteria. The kids would come down and help harvest it, which was a great help because it's a lot of work to pick every single individual piece out of each little hole on there is its own little lettuce plant. So, and there's a lot of cleanup. So they help with that. So it's really interactive for the students too, and they get to help harvest the lettuce. So looking ahead, this school year, we're looking to expand our menu offerings with more healthy nutrition and student-approved options, leading back to the Try It Tuesdays and other samplings, meeting with different groups of students to see what they're interested in, what their new favorites are. Last year at the middle high school, it was like, we want Chipotle, we want to be able to make our own bowl, want to make our own burritos. So we did that in May and June, and it was a good success. We're going to continue the Try It Tuesdays and samplings and votings. Used to do a program called Student Choice, where you would pair up two options and then the kids would get to vote on that, which one they want to see on the menu and which one they don't want to see on the menu. So we're going to continue doing some of that. We also want to continue our culinary creations program, and then we're looking to expand off of kind of that culinary creations program with the at the middle high school with the Rise and Shine Post program. See if we can offer like a monthly or a bi-monthly program where we meet and teach some life skills around cooking. Again, same concept, kind of simple cooking, nutritious meals that they can make at home, help themselves, to be able to eat something healthy and homemade. I'm going to continue to implement more scratch cooking and at the elementary school and at the middle high school. Used to be that way maybe 5 to 10 years ago in K through 12. They've kind of gone away during COVID, and it was a lot of boxed items, and we're kind of trying to shift back to more scratch cooking, more whole muscle proteins and using some of our DoD commodities to make nice, nutritious, healthy meals with more involvement with our culinary staff and less on a box. And I believe that's it. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane? No?
That is great. I'm
Awesome.
hungry now.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, right?
Started before
Now
COVID.
I'm hungry. No, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to upcoming events. My calendar, I know everyone, I'm sure it's crazy already. Fall madness,
Yeah, please do. I'll be bothered.
but all good things. It's good to see the students out there on the fields again. I know they're ready. For sports, anyway.
And they're ready. Yeah, so Friday I started to highlight some things that I wanted to point out. I felt like I was highlighting everything.
There's just too much.
But so today was the first day of fall sports, so we're always excited about that. New teacher and mentor day is this Wednesday, so we have all new teachers in, spending the day with them. Seniors out there, if you have a senior, Guidance does a great job what they call their Senior College Application Boot Camp. That's Thursday at 8:30, runs about 3.5, 4 hours. Really, if they do that right, if they go to that, they'll leave with the Common App completed. So they'll have a Common App done. They might still have to write their essay, but everything else involved in the Common Application will be done for them through that Senior College Application Boot Camp. And then they also talk to you about the process. At the same time, while our seniors are going through boot camp, 6th graders will be coming up for orientation. So one side of the building will be orientation, the other side will be our seniors at boot camp, so that's exciting. Obviously next Monday is Welcome Back Day. All the members of the school committee are certainly invited. I think Stephanie plans on saying a couple words. Tom's going to say a few words, which has done in a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to say a couple words, then we're going to give it to Jimmy Casas.
Nice.
And then that same night, elementary school is doing back to school nights, which they've traditionally done now. I think the community's really enjoyed that as well, to get into the classrooms before school starts. So grades 1 and 2 is 5 to 5:45. Grades 3 through 5 are 5:45 to 6:30. Obviously, Wednesday the 2nd is the first day of school for all students. And then, just going out into September, I do want to highlight Carver Cares is going to be sponsoring a remembrance visual on September 10th from 6 to 8 at the Carver Library. So we'd encourage members of the community to attend that candlelight visual. Open house at the middle high school is on the 17th from 6 to 8. And then the seniors start doing their thing, senior dinner dance, 24th, 7 o'clock. So as always, a lot of stuff going on, and we're looking, everything's out on the calendar. We'd encourage you to participate in all the great things that are happening in the Carver Public Schools.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to recommendations from the superintendent and the FY26 final budget transfers and financial update.
Now we're going to transition to the wrong portion of the meeting.
Yes.
John and I had the first hour, 15 minutes. Ron's got the next hour, 15 minutes.
There's no way, Ron, we're taking an hour and 15 minutes.
Try not to.
No offense.
It's all right.
You want me to share the memo first?
The memo, if you don't mind. It's all sort of embedded in there.
I have been touting about the memo. People are like, "You get a memo?" I'm like, yeah, we get a memo.
It's the memo, yeah. And it was a busy summer, unfortunately, for Ed Finance. Usually we like things to be boring and uneventful in our office, and it's been busy. So anyway, thank you for having me. So we've got financial updates for August. I'm going to start out of Washington. There's maybe 3 things that are really relevant to the Carver schools. We'll start first with the FCC. You may remember back in the budget cycle, we talked a little bit about some actions the FCC had taken to reduce the scope of this thing called E-rate. E-rate is essentially federal money that helps offset the cost, especially for rural communities, for internet access. Hardware, things like network updates, and then just services to actually connect communities to the internet, right? So there have been some reductions to the scope of the FCC's E-rate program about a year ago. Recently, the FCC commissioner had put out a solicitation for comment. What that means is whenever the federal government needs to make a change in regulations, they say, hey, here's what we're thinking, what do you think? And they open it up for comments. This particular set of comment is toward a set of questions that revolve around sort of the core idea of, has the FCC's E-rate program met its mission? Like, mission accomplished. Does everyone have internet? Are you good? Do you need no more money, ultimately? There's a series of questions, but that's the gist of it. You can see a couple of links directly to the solicitation if you're interested in digging into it. One of the challenges that could present Carver is that we lean on that federal funding for some of our major investments in network infrastructure. I will say, we saw some of this writing on the wall when they made that change last year, and we front-loaded a network update for the district recently, actually finished up this summer, to allow us to access the federal funding now in the potential event that the FCC either narrows its funding capability or closes the funding capability altogether. It doesn't help us long-term, but in this cycle, it allows Carver to get access to federal funding so that the local community doesn't have to have the burden of a massive network update. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars for this kind of investment, and the benefit of having these federal programs is it spreads out that cost over a larger pool, right, over the federal pool versus over a local pool. No action's been taken yet, but something that we'll definitely be keeping an eye on because we do our E-rate cycle annually. Yeah. A couple of items from the Washington side of things. So you may or may not know, like, Washington right now is in the process of doing their FY27 budget. The federal budget cycle is a September 30th end, October 1st end, sort of different than the state and the municipal cycle. There's this component of the executive level that's called the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. They're like my office on the federal scale, essentially. One of the things that's recently been proposed from the OMB as part of this FY27 budget cycle would be to consolidate all of what are called the ESSA grants, so Title I, Title II, Title III, all the way up. Each of those has a different focus. Consolidate them into a block grant that they're calling the MEGA grant, Make Education Great Again grant. The communication you have there, so a couple of different links, is that it would be a simplified administrative process. Ultimately, on net, it does reduce the total appropriation nationally, and the mega grant model would eliminate the focal point of each of the entitlement components. So, for example, Title I is focused on supporting the education of kiddos who are low income. Title IIA is focused on helping teacher education and training and professional development. Title III is focused on educating like kiddos who are learning English, and so on and so on and so on. The block grant would sort of consolidate some of that with a primary focus of just education in general, so like reading, writing, arithmetic more broadly, right? No action yet on that, but that's part of the mix in the FY27 budget. You've got some links there to the president's budget, some release materials about what the mega grant would look like, and so on. Last one from the Fed, also from the OMB. This is a little bit in like behind baseball, how the sausage is made, so I'm sorry for being in the weeds, but I think this one's important for Carver education in general. One of the rule changes that are proposed as part of the FY27 federal budget would be to make a modification on how federal grant appropriations are managed. So 10,000-foot view, right? The legislature has the power of the purse in all forms of government, right? Town meeting here in Carver, Massachusetts legislator up in Beacon Hill, Congress at federal level. They decide money and how much money you're going to get and those sorts of things. And then the administration's job is to administer that, manage it, make sure it's following the rules. OMB's rule change, we have a link there for you, would propose that you'd expand the authority of the executive branch to either halt or terminate any congressionally approved funding. It's a pretty substantial shift in consolidation of authority when it comes to the appropriation of funds, and so obviously has led to some debate in Congress. That, depending on what state you're in, obviously, that could jam things up when it comes to federal grants. Carver gets a pretty substantial amount of federal funding to help support our budget so that our local community is not spending those funds to do those services. Nothing's been passed yet, obviously, but that's another one that's in the mix. It's a little bit, I know, fine grain there, but an important potential impact to how federal funds go from the Fed to the state to us here in Carver. More to come on that, but that's your view of federal education funding this summer. Over in the state, a little less controversial, but certainly is busy. Happy to say Governor Healy signed the FY27 budget. I have that there for you. No vetoes, which was great. Came in on July 9th, so they did have to do a very small interim budget there. I've got a link to the interim budget if you're trying to fall asleep at night. You can take a look at that for a few days of budget that covers. Highlights are very much what we talked about over the budget cycle. Not a huge change from what was proposed. Chapter 70, minor increase to per pupil aid. Your circuit breaker, again, we talked a little bit about this when we were doing the budget. Circuit breaker is fully funded, but it does include some supplemental funding to make it whole. It's not a big deal in any one year, but that is something the state is going to have to get out of eventually if they want to continue to fully fund circuit breaker, the funds that we get to reimburse us for special education costs, right? I won't go through all of them. Last one I'll just share with you that I think is helpful is that very last bullet. So you may remember we chatted a little bit about this idea of out-of-district transportation and the costs for out-of-district transportation. Part of the budget includes some directive to DESE to put a study together statewide around what that looks like in terms of the costs, the options that are available to communities, and to see if there's a way to improve the marketplace more broadly. The state already does something similar through this arm called OSD when it comes to special education out-of-district tuitions. They manage that process to try to ensure that you don't have big swings. You do so sometimes get big swings. A few years ago we had big swings in tuitions, but the intention is to sort of regulate that market to avoid massive swings that ultimately impact your local community's budgets. Yeah. So more to come on that. I think that's a positive outcome, though, to get some more information, get some more data, help understand what the marketplace is, and ultimately create some guardrails so that communities aren't hit with these big bills for special education transportation. Lastly, out of Beacon Hill, just a few days after your budget was passed, Governor Healy also proposed a $100 million supplemental funding bill. The intention of that was to take some of this Fair Share Act funds, so the millionaire's tax funds, and provide it directly to school districts. You may remember back when we were doing the budget, there's a lot of school districts in the South Shore in particular, but across the state, who are really seeing massive reductions in revenue, massive increases in costs, leading to cuts really across the board. I feel fortunate in Carver that we've certainly had some of that up and down, but not nearly as extreme. But the intention of these funds are to help soften that blow. It doesn't eliminate it entirely, but the intention would be to soften that blow for communities. All in, it'd be about $112 per pupil on top of the $130 that's part of the budget. So obviously very well received from all the school departments across the state. I think House Ways and Means hasn't taken the bill up at this time. They're pumping the brakes, understandably so. They did just pass a budget. Let's see how that's going before we pass a further supplemental. We'll definitely keep our eyes on that. It would mean about $150,000 directly to the Carver schools as a direct appropriation versus as a Chapter 70 appropriation would be part of our funding formula. So that could be really beneficial for the school district in a lot of ways, but we'll keep an eye on that one. So busy summer, both at the state and federal level when it comes to education finance. Along with that, it brings us to some grant awards. This is the time of year our federal and state funding starts to come through. I have two federal grant appropriations I'd ask the committee to vote on today. We have the IDEA funds, that's special education federal funds that is a pass-through from the Fed to the state for $529,389. The large majority of that goes to offsetting our special education out-of-district tuitions, right? And then we have early childhood special education funds, similar federal pass-through from Fed to state to Carver, $21,093. This is a real small amount of money. It partially offsets one ESP's salary. It's not even a full one, but every dollar we can get we'll take. Many thanks to Special Education Director Ms. Leary. She helps coordinate this application each year to sort of maximize the dollars that Carver gets. And so with the committee's approval, we'll get this moving for you.
I put the grant.
In the state grant, chat about that too. So state appropriation, as part of the supplemental budget that was already passed, Carver was awarded $50,000 as a direct earmark to help go toward the replacement of the gymnasium bleachers over at the middle high school. This is the first direct earmark Carver has received, at least in a few years. And so I feel fortunate that we've gotten to that process. Whatever you think about direct earmarks, for good or for bad, that's the way that the state operates currently. And so to give Carver an opportunity to get a bite at that apple, I think is beneficial. We'll continue annually to advocate to our state leadership to try to get additional resources for Carver. It's a bit of a hit and miss game, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? When it comes down to it. So both of those all three of those require a vote from the school committee to approve.
I move that we approve the end of the 2026 fiscal year budget transfers, including, oh no, am I on the wrong one?
Grants.
Yes.
So we're going to do the grants first, okay. I move to approve the acceptance of 3 grants, the Individuals Disability Education Act, IDEA, Federal Special Education Entitlement Grant in the amount of $529,389, the Early Childhood Special Education ECSE Program Federal Entitlement Grant in the amount of $21,093, and state earmark of $50,000 to replace the gym bleachers at the middle high school.
Thank you for that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And the next we have, we'll do the transfers for FY26. And pull it up for us real quick. Yeah, so you've got your end of year closeout. Would you mind clicking on the left tab there? The main budget on the far left? Yeah. Hey, if you could scroll to the bottom if you don't mind, please. So the first bit of information you've got for you in FY26 is just your closeout budget. As we do each quarter, give you all your accounts down to the penny. Budget, revenue, expenses, all in. What you see here in your closeout also includes your final balance at the end of your year. That's called your turnback in the municipal finance. And so any dollars that your school department doesn't use ultimately gets turned back to the general government. Typically it just rolls back into free cash. That free cash gets used as the legislature town meeting would see fit. You'll probably see something in your next warrant that says we appropriate all of that money to capital and whatever other needs the community might have, right? All in, you've got $10,334.82 as your final budget balance, which is your turnback. That's about 4/100ths of 1% of your total appropriation. Your typical turnback is between $10,000 and $40,000. It's usually less than about 1/10 of 1%. Last thing I'll just say about this, kudos to our staff in the business office, especially as they get to the end of the year, to try to land that $25 million budget just about as close to zero as you can get it. So appreciative of Tammy, Carrie, and our team there for all the work they do to make that possible. We need do you want to do the warrants as well?
The transfers again.
You got it. The transfers themselves is next tab here. The transfers are pretty. I don't know what I'm looking for. Your end of year transfers are just balancing any budget that has a negative balance. So typically we do transfers that are more significant. We move one set of funding from one account to another to pay for a particular item or need or unanticipated priority. At the end of the year, we're simply closing things out. I'll give you a couple of highlights if you want to take a look at the top there. Your top 3 transfers as we close out the year, middle high school technology. Those will replace some laptops for the end of the year. We also had an unanticipated SPED placement, which is your next row 3. We use some of our funding from district-wide seminar and training to cover this Teaching and Learning Alliance training that the district's been working on as part of our curriculum development. And then the last 2 in terms of your highest transfers were just subs. They're both long-term subs and short-term subs. That's pretty typical at the end of year transfers though. Final numbers come in for subs by the end of the year and we adjust and reconcile accordingly. If you scroll down to the bottom on that, Mr. Neef, please. So you can see, as always though, all of your transfers are always net zero and they're within the total budget that is appropriated with that balance of the $10,000. So I just request the committee, certainly answer any question you've got, and then request a vote from the committee to approve transfers, but more importantly, that end of year balance and turn back.
Rob, what are these billing issues resolved? What is that all?
You may remember this year we had a really high set of bills that came in for utilities. You may or may not remember, but like Q2 and Q3, our bills were much higher than typical. So we did a bit of like deep dive on this and said like, this is way beyond, sometimes we get spikes in the winter, which are normal. This is beyond normal. So we did the transfers initially to make sure you had funds in the account to pay those bills. Long story short though, we went back and forth bill by bill with the utilities and found that they had sent us a bill that was for another entity within town. We then resolved it with them. And so you'll see...
You're welcome.
This is that much higher than ours.
Yeah, within the municipality, right, within municipal departments. So you'll see you actually have a balance there, primarily because you did transfers in Q2 and 3 to make sure you had funds in account to cover what the bills were coming in.
Okay.
Not to bore you with too much utilities, but I'll dive one more thing since you asked about it. So later in the meeting, we'll chat a little bit about this alternative on-bill credit program that we're trying to do that will give you some savings longer term. That's going to be punted for a couple of years as they do the build, but we're going to be doing an internal analysis with an external firm to come in, take a look at all of our utilities costs, particularly though the electricity costs, historically over the past years, but more importantly to project out over the next few years as well. A, to make sure we don't get jammed up on a billing issue going forward, but also I want to be able to capture the real savings that we see if we do this alternative on-bill credits. So more to come on that. We'll probably have that internal analysis done in like October, November, so that we have some data to drive our conversations about utilities and billing when we do our budget for FY28. I know it's only August and FY28 is a while away, but on the heels of that, we wanted to do a deep dive. Yeah. Super good question. Other questions I can help answer on transfers or end of year balance.
I move to approve the end of the 2026 fiscal year budget transfers, including a turn back to the town of $10,334.82.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I thank you
very
all.
much.
And then the last thing we've got is warrants.
Yes.
So what you see in front of you here are going to be the end of FY26. That's your fourth quarter warrants in 26. You'll see the transfer there also just denotes the turnback amount for FY26's final quarter. And then July starts the beginning of a new fiscal year, and so you have quarter one warrants for FY27. Henry?
I move to approve the FY26 fourth quarter warrants and the FY27 first quarter warrants.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And that brings us to energy
Right,
credit
energy
purchase
credit.
agreements.
All right.
Very
Let's
exciting.
grab in a second.
Alex should be able to turn his computer on if he wants this. Alex, the other thing, you should be able to turn your camera on.
Sorry, my mic is off, but Alex,
There you go.
Andrew, our CEO, is joining you.
Alex, come in.
Welcome.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
We're working on
it's
it.
We're
okay.
working on it.
We have to work on that sound from people at home.
As they're getting settled, I might just. Oh, maybe
I
not.
have to-
Sorry.
Is everyone muted?
No, we're not getting the sound at home. I have to turn my
Okay.
computer on to get the sound at home. So I have to bounce back and forth. When Ryan's speaking, I would need.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
Andrew's just kidding. So hi Andrew, how you doing? Andrew's here too.
Hello, welcome.
Okay, everybody's frozen right now.
There we go.
All right,
Okay.
okay. Take
Well, Alex, Andrew, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to kick us off by just giving the committee a refresher about this project. We have Andrew and Alex from our partners over at Kearsarge Hardwick LLC. A little bit of context for our conversation this evening. The purpose today is to have a vote on an agreement between Kearsarge and the Carver Public Schools on an alternative on-bill crediting process for some alternative energy utility credits. What I've tried to do is sort of summarize both the agreement and a little bit about the process in general. I'll start by just giving you a refresher on what we talked about this past winter. So you may be familiar, Massachusetts is really a leader when it comes to thinking about how to diversify its grid and diversify its energy portfolio across the state. One of the investments that the state's been making has been investments in solar energy, as I'm sure you know in Carver, which has lots of solar pilots. This is not a pilot. This is purely a credit accounting process that allows the school department to make some savings on its electricity bills going forward. So if you go to the next one, please. So over the past several months, our colleagues in Town Hall, the school department, Kearsarge, through a combination of lawyers and some consultants, have been pulling together this agreement that would do a couple of things for the Carver schools. The first is it sort of allows the school department to benefit from this photovoltaic project that Kearsarge is building out in western Massachusetts. It does that by leveraging the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program, that SMART program. And what it will do is it will lock the school department in to this agreement, this 20-year agreement, at a 12% guaranteed discount for all of our electrical costs that we get from that process, right? A couple things to be aware of as we look ahead to the next slide. This is a little bit different than like things that we may be familiar with, like net metering. This is purely the electrons that you're getting from this project aren't directly coming to Carver. They go into the network, they go into the grid, and then we're essentially getting the benefit of the fact that they exist in the grid, in the state, right? So here's how it works. Step one, you'll have that generation and delivery. From there, the utility, Eversource in our case, is going to like calculate the value of that. So the rate can change with the market, as markets always do, but we're going to get guaranteed a 12% discount on whatever that rate is. So over the next 20 years, rates are going to go up like your rate and my rate at our house. But regardless of what those rates will be, we'll receive that 12% discount as net savings on the bill when we receive those bills. Yeah? At the 10,000 foot view, our district uses about 2.4 million kilowatt hours a year. We've got a couple of big facilities, and so we use a lot of electricity. If you extrapolate that over the 20-year life of the project, you'd say a savings of about $1 million to the taxpayers and to the school department. It's about $50,000 a year over the 20 years. Again, I want to underscore that the idea here is that we'll get a net discount on the rate as the rate changes, so your rate savings looks better and better as the rates go up over time, right? Here's your current timeline. These are some of the milestones that you'll see in the agreement. We had originally talked with our consultant on this project with an aim for 2027. Because we've got a number of projects that are going on now over in Western Massachusetts, there's this like consolidated study of how all of those projects on a whole would impact the grid. And so it's bumped the project back to 2029. The goal would be that in 2029, though, we start to receive the invoices that have the alternative on bill credit and start to see those savings as part of our utility bills and part of our utilities budget. Couple of things that you always want to think about when you think about your agreements, right? Like how do you get out of the agreement if you need to? Ultimately, the agreement is beneficial to Carver in that we're not buying any equipment here, right? So we're not installing solar panels on the roof or anything like that. Ultimately, if the construction of the equipment doesn't happen, we get out of it. Or if there's, we're not paying our part of the bill because we still have to pay utilities bill, or the billing is not occurring, they can get out of it. When you think about, again, the contract and possibilities for default, it's built in a way that would imply you could go bankrupt. We are a governmental entity, we're not going bankrupt. But one of the defaults would be if we ever went bankrupt, or more likely, like if you didn't pay your bill again. It doesn't typically happen, but that would be our default. And then from the provider's perspective, if they went bankrupt, that would be their default. Same idea, failure to pay. That would be our opportunity to get out of this contract. The safe harbor clause, the safe harbor clause, if you go back up just for 1 second. There's a safe harbor clause that's also in the agreement. Ultimately, if for whatever reason we're in disagreement about one of those invoices, it would not trigger a default while we were disputing the invoice. Right, so if they send us back and go, oh, we think it's this amount, we go, actually, we disagree. During that dispute time, it wouldn't necessarily trigger a default. It would allow us to resolve that, right? The next part of your agreement, you think about your risk mitigation. So there's really 3 components to that there. There is a caveat for, acts of God. If there are, earthquakes or what have you, there's allowed to be force majeure as part of this contract. We don't anticipate there being earthquakes in Massachusetts, but most good contracts are going to have some latitude for that. There's still indemnification language, obviously. So if you look in that bottom left-hand corner, it indemnifies, the Carver schools from third-party claims from the agreement. And then on the right-hand side, like the taxes and governmental fees. Ultimately, this is Kearsarge's project, right? They're responsible for the installation of all of this equipment and all of the franchise fees and all the other fees associated with it. We're simply going to take advantage of Massachusetts' SMART program and take that 12% discounted utility rate. I think we talked about this a little bit already. The only other part that I maybe want to take a moment on is this bottom right-hand corner. So it does give Carver the flexibility, if it were to choose to do so, to allocate this alternative billing credit to some other municipality or some other school district. I don't know why you'd want to do that. It's a 12% discount for us, but you have that ability if you ever choose to do so within the life of the agreement. Big picture, it's a relatively low risk, pretty high reward from our perspective. We've got no capital investment. We get to leverage what the state has already set in place for the rules for the SMART program. And then upon the project starting, be able to yield that 12% discount on rate. Next steps from here would be a school committee vote followed by the select board vote. And then ultimately we go to town meeting. I think they've got the special town meeting lined up for December.
This is a town-wide. This is not, it's not like
Yep.
Carver School, it's a town-wide.
Yep.
It is just a Carver School proposal. They wouldn't be, no other part of the municipality would benefit. No, the town's actually maxed out all of its credits. So there's a bunch of different ways as part of the SMART program for municipalities and school departments to like access all of these credits. Because the town has a bunch of these solar pilots in town, sort of maximize your cap on that thing. Interestingly, this is a bit into the weeds. The alternative on-bill credits don't have a maximum, which is why you can utilize that. Whereas like net solar metering ends up with a maximum, right? So you've maxed out your net solar metering here in the community, but your alternative on-bill credits is something that the school department can leverage. The reason it goes to the legislature is because it's over 20 years, so you've got to have legislative approval after over 3 years. Mostly there's some exceptions to go to 6 years, but 20 is well over all those municipal exceptions. I should have said this at the beginning. I'm sorry I didn't sort of give you the caveat. I'm not a utilities expert. I'm not a lawyer. So this is a summary of sort of the work that we've been doing with our lawyers as well as our consultants. But we have our colleagues from Kearsarge here as well, Alex and Andrew. And I don't know if you all want to share any perspective or anything that I might have missed.
Thank you. We have a solar project in Carver, so we're quite familiar. We pay taxes. Kearsarge, just a quick background, we're about 900 million. We're probably the largest independent power producer in New England. So we're strong financially. We're in business since 2009. I'm the founder. So the other question, you want to make sure that the project's real and that it's going to go ahead and that your partner is going to be around. So we don't sell any of our projects, we develop and keep them. This particular project for Massport is at the Worcester Airport, and it's a critical project. And Massport's done a fantastic job of helping us with the national grid where the project is located in their zone. So things are moving along. They just have to finish some of the major infrastructure upgrades. So that's the short of it. And I think Ron did a fantastic job of the overview, quite honestly. But there's very little risk. Having done, I don't know, Alex, we've probably done over 120 of these schools, towns, and things like that. We have about 350 megawatts in the order and operate, and about 120 separate projects. But not a heck of a lot of risk. Anything. The only risk is if your partner in this case, it's you're not out any capital because you're just getting a savings as Ron outlined. So I think overall, go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
I was going to add, this is the Harwood project, Kearsarge Harwood, and not Massport, just the.
Oh, right, Harwood, right next door. Right, with the town of Harwood, thanks. And another project in the same national territory. But, we think it's a strong offer, and we'd be pleased to have you as a partner.
Thank you both. And any questions that, I'll start by fielding what I can field, but then if there's something maybe I can't field, I'll turn it over to Andrew and Alex, and I'm sure they've probably forgotten more about alternative energy than I know.
I just want to say I'm actually a part of something very similar for my own home, and it's been great. It's about the 12%, and for us, we got credit, so we didn't pay anything for
Yeah,
like
solar
6
panels and
months.
those sorts of things,
And
yeah.
then we started getting bills, but they were lower than our regular, so I am all for this if it's gonna save us money.
Yeah, one of the things that attracted us to this, we have a partner we've worked with when I was over working with some collaborative colleagues in the collaborative, South Shore Collaborative, turned us on to this project because we talked a little about like, oh, is there any value in like adding solar panels to roofs and those sorts of things? And the short answer is like, yes, of course there always is, but you have a capital investment there and then you have a maintenance investment there. And you'll still get some credits and saving ultimately, but you have a lot more skin in that game. And Massachusetts has a program that allows municipalities and schools to get a lot of that benefit without a lot of the capital up front and a lot of the like operational and maintenance costs up front. So that's one of the reasons we were attracted to something like this, to try to cut down a little bit of our utility costs.
I happen to notice, I think in passing, that there's a cap of kilowatt hours.
Yes.
1.8 million or something.
2.8.
That's keep scrolling. Any idea how close that is to our actual usage?
We use about 2.3 million, 2.3 to 2.4, so that gives you a little bit of room for additional usage.
So we'll be getting full.
We'll be under that cap
Right.
currently. That could change if we
Full benefit of the
had
program.
additional, needs that came online,
Sure.
or I don't
A
know.
really hot summer.
Yeah, we're cranking up some of the utilities there as well. And we got a bit of guidance from our consultant on trying to hit that number as well, based on what some of our previous usage was. And I'll turn it over to Andrew and Alex if you want to add anything about like the way in which that figure is calculated.
Yeah. I can add that the number was chosen to be sized to target about between 80% and 90% of your total dollar spend. Like you said, there's no kilowatt hour limit on how many kilowatt hours we can allocate. It's just sized to your dollar usage, right? We could offset all your dollar usage, but we like to leave a slight buffer there. So you're, in a case you have a little lower usage 1 year, you're not over allocating credits, right? So we like to leave just a little bit of room so you guys are using the right amount and not over allocating.
Yeah, most likely, with the rise in energy prices, you'll have more and more room to take credits on. But the Smart 3 program, as Ron outlined, was very different than net metering. To your total kilowatt hours that you use as a municipality. Now, basically, you're getting $1. So if your bill is $100,000, you don't want to get $110,000 of credits because you don't want to carry a balance. It's that simple. So that's why it was sized like this. And it also gives you room to grow.
Other questions?
Anyone have any additional questions? No? See, this is like collaboration, learning things from other districts. I'm so thankful that they brought this to you. Thank you to everyone that was involved in bringing this together to bring to us. I think it seems like a great opportunity. Anyone have any questions?
Just, I'm sure that you did thorough due diligence on this company and their performance in the past and all that.
Two things about it, just to be clear. Yes on that, and also we've engaged our lawyers as well. So this just wasn't me like looking at this myself to do that due diligence, both from the company's research perspective, but also to make sure that the agreement itself didn't create a liability scenario in which either the town of Carver or the school department was left holding the bag in any way.
Perfect. I assumed, but
Yeah.
Yeah, always good to mention, dot all the i's, cross all the t's.
This would require a vote if the committee is comfortable.
Okay.
I'm just waiting to see if anybody had any questions. Okay. I move to approve the alternative on bill credit agreement between the Carver Public Schools and Kearsarge Hardwick.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex and
Thank you,
Andrew.
guys.
Yes,
You're
thank you
welcome
for
to stay
being
for the
here.
rest of the meeting, but
Right,
we won't be offended if you drop off.
All right. All right. So So moving on to review of student activities accounts.
Yep. So annually, student,
Banners or?
I think it's student activities is next on the agenda.
Yeah, but you want to do the banners and network.
I think it's the student activities.
Let's do that first.
Right. This one's a quick one. Yeah, so annually, it's best practice for the committee to take a look at your student activities accounts. We ask that you vote to affirm them for us. Just a quick refresher on student activities. I know we talk about this like once a year, each year. So the law actually governs how student activities works in Massachusetts. It's pretty explicit. At the 10,000-foot view, student activities funds are ultimately the students' funds. It's their money, and we are custodians of those funds. Not to bore you with this, but it's actually built around the idea of financial literacy that Mr. Neef was talking a little bit about earlier, to give students an opportunity to be the finance director of their club or the financial secretary of their club. And so our goal, we try to work with all of our kiddos in our schools, is that if they're working on their student activities, they are empowered to be in charge of their money, and we help them along with what that process will look like. Because we are the custodians of that money, we provide the oversight for that ultimately. And so best practices annually, the activities are revoted as established by the school committee. This year we're asking you to do two things kindly. The first would be to vote the starting balances for these student activities, the activities they see fit, but also an update to one of the accounts, account 4-426, it's the music club. They proposed to make it, to expand it from just the music club to the music club and field trips, which would allow them to dedicate that funding for, music field trip fundraising along the year. Right. There's currently no balance in that account, so you need to transfer anything necessarily. It would purely just be an expansion of the allowable use of those funds. You have two sets of accounts in your school district, a middle high school set of accounts and an elementary set of accounts. The middle high school set of accounts has a current balance of $164,368.88 at the end of FY26, and the elementary school has got $8,583.74. Obviously, as the kiddos get older, they have much more activity in student activities, and so there's lots more of accounts, and therefore lots more money there. My ask of the committee would simply be to vote to affirm the accounts as they are with their balances, and then that change from the music club to the music club and field trips. But I'll field any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
So just curiosity, like the class of 2020 has a $2,500 balance. Is that money going to be used? Are they going to?
I think they use it for like.
They use it for reunions and things like that.
Oh, okay.
They do a combination of things. Some groups choose to keep it and try to use it for their reunion. Some groups gift it to another group, right? And so typically when there's a transfer of gift, like we'll come to you and say, hey, there's this transfer. This group wants to give their money to the next class or whatever it might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some groups try to spend it down.
Yeah.
Give it to the school.
I would say that's probably the most typical.
So
Spend it
they'll
down.
they'll do something, you don't see something that says from the class of
But
2025.
there's a decision maker
Yes.
somewhere that will make that decision at some point.
Yeah, the students,
Typically.
the senior class officers
Yeah.
make that
Yeah,
decision.
usually. Should be a question. Other questions?
Any other questions? Okay. I move to approve the existence of 133 student activity accounts at the middle high school with the aggregate starting balance of $164,368.88 and 12 student activities accounts at the elementary school with the aggregate starting balance of $8,583.74.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you very much.
And we also, I didn't have it, we have to do the name change for
Separately?
Yep.
4-4-2-6.
I figured as much.
From music,
Okay.
Yep. So
music club and field trips.
I move that we approve the name change for the music club to amend by adding field trips.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you.
I know a bit of housekeeping, but I appreciate it.
No, appreciate it.
Yep.
I'm sure the students do too.
Okay.
Are we doing disposition next? Yeah.
Disposition next.
Disposition.
Want to do network equipment, or let's do network equipment first?
Let's do
That'll be
network
easier.
first, and then we'll talk about the banners.
Banners would be
Okay.
more-
It's been a hot topic for
Yep.
my world all summer.
It's the summer, and we typically have some amount of equipment that's been replaced. As we talked about earlier, we did have that network overhaul over the summer. Part of that network overhaul yielded some equipment that could have additional life on the market. What you see there is a set of Meraki network equipment and the estimated fair market value for that equipment. That equipment is no longer part of our network, and what we'd ask the committee to do is deem that as surplus, and then we put that out for sale. As part of your vote, I'd ask you to simply deem it surplus. That's simply a fair market estimate. We'd go get the best price we can get for you.
I don't know if you want to do this separate from the banners. I had it together as a proposal, we can do it together, so we'll do it one time with
can do
banners.
it
Start with
together.
banners. Okay.
So I know many of you were able to be at the new banner ceremony. With our brand new banners up and the plaques wall and the interactive television, we have the set of older banners that are no longer needed by the school department. I believe there's 60 there in the list. And so typically your policy says, like, whenever possible, we want to try to recoup some funding for the school department. One of the things we do as part of that process behind the scenes is see, like, what is there for fair market value. There's not really fair market value for banners in that, like, they're really specific to just the community of Carver, right? But we anticipate that there's probably some people in Carver who have, a connection to them, feel there's that sentimental value as well. And so because there's a lot of them and there's not a really great fair market value, what we propose is if the committee would deem them as surplus, we'd simply put them out for essentially on a market auction. And there's an online auction marketplace that we've used in the past for municipalities. They'd go online. Highest bidder would have the honor of having that particular banner. Anything that did get a bid ultimately would be considered surplus and ultimately thrown out. One of the things that is beneficial for the auction, though, is that it ensures that everyone gets a fair stab at a banner, right? So it's not like, oh, I knew the coach a few years back, so I wanted to grab this banner. If you want to bid the highest bid, you get the banner. If not, you don't get the banner. The other thing is it allows that, if folks used to be on the 1987 football team or something, and now they don't live in town, they're still welcome to bid from California or wherever else they live, in the world. And lastly, because you use a municipal auction house, it ensures that we meet all the regulatory and statutory requirements for disposition of materials in the state of Massachusetts, right? So, that would be our proposal if the committee would.
And the intention is that any money raised would go into the athletics. The athletics drawing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a time frame on that?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
It takes a bit of because there's a large number of them, it takes a bit of doing to build it first. So what we do is it was voted today, we get started on the build, and then just communicate out to the community when we have it built, and then a date. Typically, these things are open for a window of time, a couple of weeks that are open for a window.
Yeah.
Works very similar to eBay, right? You put your initial bids, folks wait to the last 30 seconds to get those final bids in action.
So they'll be fighting for
Midnight
them.
on October 2nd.
Right, something like that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll be fighting for them.
100%.
I've gotten a lot of questions about this, surprisingly enough, this
Yeah.
summer. So I want.
I think
wanted
people
to
are
be-
interested in banners.
They are
So-
absolutely were interested in purchasing them. So I've had a few people ask me. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear and that we advertise this, because just the amount of, even though we
Yeah.
did so much communication around these banners, I'm still getting the same questions from like back in October. So as long as the community is aware that they'll be going up for auction and that
Yeah, and we'll certainly communicate it well in advance of the
Perfect.
time frame of when it'll be available for bid.
Wonderful. Excellent.
You gotta reach that guy in California from the '87 football team.
Except we didn't have an 87 football team because we didn't exist in 87.
Well, we're trying to connect with them as alumni, because that's one of our goals anyhow, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll definitely go to our alumni outreach.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have to. Oh, I was surprised actually that there was so much interest. To
That's
be honest with you.
good.
But I'm glad.
People are
very happy
to their
about it.
sports program. Yeah, it's great.
Any other
I have
Fill
a
out all
feeling the
those
Shelburne
mandates.
brothers are gonna get pretty heated about their doing
We're gonna fight over that banner.
They might.
From their
Well, it'll be
presentation
in
that
their parents'
evening.
homes, so they can see it whenever they want.
Yeah. I think there'll be some bid offs for sure.
I think so. I think you'll do better than you expect, to be honest with you.
Maybe
Okay.
we'll get those new bleachers after all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that'd be nice. It'd be lovely.
Probably not that
That would be
much money.
amazing if we
But it would be
raised that
amazing
money.
if we got enough money to pay for, well, either the weight room or the bleachers.
Wherever it
But-
goes to
Yes,
is going to be a worthy cause.
for sure. No, I think this is great. I think it'll be exciting.
Okay.
right.
So I move to deem the network equipment and the athletic banners as surplus.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, yes, thank you. It was under an hour. Okay, so that brings us to the first reading of policy JKAA, timeout, seclusion, and physical restraint of students.
Yeah, so
Welcome.
this is based on a regulatory change from DESI, and we thought on this one it would make sense to have Melissa, as the Director of Special Ed, kind of make an overview presentation of how the regulations have changed and what the impacts are for us here in Carver before we look at the policy specifically.
Okay.
So Melissa, thanks for being here.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the amendments, specifically what has changed or is being proposed to being changed. So my agenda for the meeting will be to talk about the rationale, to overview what timeout is, to overview seclusion, to provide some updates about the amendments with regard to timeout, the facilities in particular, the limited emergency seclusion exception, imminent threat, expanded oversight and reporting, and then I'll provide a quick summary, talk about the seclusion reporting form that will be done through DESI, and then just takeaways. So the rationale for the changes are specifically designed to promote equitable access to safe learning environments that support both academic and social emotional development for all students, to reduce the exclusionary practices and ensure timeout is used as a voluntary calming strategy rather than a form of confinement. So the overview of timeout is that it's a behavioral support strategy.
Can we just hold on a second?
Yeah.
No, just only from the standpoint of saying, I mean, that's like the big picture change is there was a concern, not in the Carver Public Schools, but in Massachusetts, and quite honestly, probably mostly in our district schools. Not a lot of these things are happening in your general public ed setting. But there was a sense that people were doing timeouts as seclusions, and they weren't letting kids leave. So this is gonna make it like real clear that as if you can give kids a timeout, have a timeout room, but they have to know that they can leave that room anytime they want to. And there was a concern that that wasn't happening. And seclusions were technically not allowed, and so kids were being feared. That was the concern. Sorry, but
No, thank you. So timeouts are really supposed to be a behavioral support strategy to help reduce students' dysregulation and ensure that they're being calm. During timeouts, they're supposed to be continuously observed by a staff member in an unblocked setting, which the student is permitted to leave. So students have the opportunity to leave whenever they want. In the past, with timeouts, we've done things where students have to respond to a directive in order to be ready to leave that location, but now they have the ability to leave whenever. Timeout shall cease as soon as the student has calmed down. The staff supervising the student should help to support co-regulation and provide strategies, look at the student's cues to see their tone of voice and if their demeanor is showing that they're de-escalating. And again, they should not be required to complete a specific task in order to leave that setting or demonstrate that they have a calm body, which are some things that we have often tried to do with students, so this will be a little bit of a change. And then for seclusion, timeout is different from seclusion, which is defined in the new regulations as an involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room or area with or without adult supervision from which the student is not permitted to leave. So while timeout is a behavioral support strategy, seclusion should only be used in emergency circumstances and as defined by the regulations. So now with regard to timeout, just a couple of updates. The critical change is that it's in an unlocked setting and that students have the freedom to leave the location. They are permitted to leave. They're not physically prevented from leaving. And then effective use of timeout, there are some examples that the state had offered. Student asked to take a break outside of the classroom to use some regulation. The staff sits with the student in the hallway while the student uses those strategies to calm down. Another example could be a teacher calmly invites a student to move to a particular area within the classroom away from other students and then helps them to regulate, again, to calm down and to show signs of dysregulation or of regulation. And then according to school or program procedures, a staff member asks a student to step into a nearby quiet area, again, to help them de-escalate. So really, timeout is to help support calming strategies for students. And then as far as the location, the specifics are that the location should be clean, safe, sanitary, appropriate for calming, have the appropriate size and level of comfort for the student based on their needs, ensure there's proper climate control, free of objects, and in compliance. At our last TFM, I'm sorry, the acronym is escaping me, but we had a review a couple of years ago that looked at our timeout locations, and we updated them to ensure that they were following these regulations.
And we do have timeout space at the elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Tier focus monitor.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Like, there's so many.
But that's not the name anymore. It has a new name.
I am.
right?
Changed, yeah.
I
Yeah,
am.
but none of us are all going like, what's the new name? No, we're having one this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
But it's not TFM anymore.
Um,
Or CPR, or coordinated program review. We can go back, and it's had many names over the years. We just don't know what the new name is. Timeout space is in compliance with that.
Yes.
It is used occasionally at the elementary school.
Yes.
And we might have to make a small shift in terms of not asking students for a cue to leave the timeout space.
Correct. Yeah. And then with regard to seclusion, this is an emergency seclusion, and that is an exception, and there has to be pre-existing conditions. So there are multiple ways in which we have to ensure that families and students, medical physicians, and psychologists are ensuring that this is something that can be done for that student. So basically, this is an emergency intervention that requires prior written consent from the family, if appropriate, the student, and has been approved by the principal. Documentation from a licensed physician ensures there's no medical contraindications. Documentation from a licensed mental health professional ensures that there is no psychological or behavioral justification for the use, and there are no contraindications. So we have to have all of these forms in place prior to even considering doing an emergency seclusion for a student. And then the adult must be present and actively monitoring the student at all times in order to implement it. We're supposed to use emergency seclusion as a last resort, so it's not a means of discipline or punishment or a standard response. We really can only be utilizing it when there's imminent threat of assault or serious physical harm of the student, and also if the student is unresponsive to directives or lawful and less intrusive behavior interventions, or if those interventions are deemed inappropriate. So we try the lesser interventions in the least restrictive environment, and if they've failed, then if the student also has a repeated history of doing self-injurious behaviors or injuries to other students, then we would implement the emergency seclusion. So during seclusion, staff is continuously monitoring the student and trying to help calm the student down. The student is observable in all parts of the room or the area that is being used, and the staff member continues to use de-escalation and calming strategies with the student unless it's unsafe or counterproductive. And then you cease this seclusion as soon as the student no longer imposes an imminent threat of assault or physical harm, or if they are in severe distress. So as far as the safeguards, staff using seclusion must have received behavior training. The principal should be verbally notified of implementation as soon as possible. If it exceeds longer than 30 minutes, again, the principal must provide approval. We have to create a written report of the emergency intervention no later than the next school working day. We have ongoing records of all the incidences that are maintained by the principal. Parents and guardians are notified. Schools must also conduct weekly and monthly data reviews, and we do this to see if there are patterns of behavior, if students are accessing timeout or seclusion more frequently than others. Then we would determine if we need to have an IEP meeting or any follow-up meetings to really support the students in better ways. We're supposed to utilize emergency intervention alternatives and make sure that we're adopting those practices no later than August of 2029, and no behavior plan or IEP should include seclusion within it. So the next part is imminent threat, and this was just trying to explain basically the rationale for using a seclusion. And it would really be if the student was experiencing any bodily harm or harm to others. They need to be immediate, clear risk to others or themselves. It's not based, or the termination must be based on specific observable behaviors that indicate harm is about to occur and could result in bodily injury rather than generalized fears or emotional distress or prior history. So if a student is just starting to escalate, they're yelling, they're swearing, they're refusing to follow directions, yes, that's disruptive, but it's not imminent threat. It really has to be that there's a risk of harm.
And it's also not, like, it's physical harm, but not to material things. Like, it's, right?
Just to self or
Just-
others.
Right.
Yes.
Not to, like if he's breaking a chair or something like that, there's no interference there, correct?
I don't think so. I think it's more if it's with regard to harming self or others. Yeah. And then just oversight and reporting. So special ed programs, both private and public, have to be following these procedures. Data collection, there's more data collection that we're doing as far as making sure that we have the proper forms in place and then tracking all of the logs. And then basically eliminating the use of seclusion and really working on supporting students through behavioral alternatives and providing calming strategies rather than necessarily going to this extreme. So as far as the summary, the key changes are just that timeout, the exit was ambiguous before, and now they must be permitted to leave. The room quality must provide all of the supports and be following the specifications. Seclusion is prohibited in most contexts before, but now it's been redefined and only allowed as a last resort. And reporting used to be variable, but now there's weekly and monthly data reviews and reporting to DESE for emergency interventions.
And can I just hold on the seclusion piece for a second?
Yes.
So the key point, I think we've hit it, I think we'll hit it, I just want to make sure it was really clear that the seclusion piece is saying the family has to consent prior.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a key point. So it has to be discussed at the IEP meeting. Like you have to say,
yeah.
hey, there's a chance based on your student's history and
Profile.
looking at their profile that we may have to do a seclusion. If you haven't had that discussion, you can't do it
Right.
under this regulation. So they're trying to stop. I think the fear was that some timeouts were really seclusions.
Mhm.
They actually want to end seclusions, make timeouts not seclusions, but then they because technically it's under the old regulations, a seclusion wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
So now they're saying, okay, we don't want timeouts to be seclusions, we want them to be timeouts and the kid can leave. And then you can do a seclusion, but everyone's gonna be on board
Yes.
prior that that's something that could happen. So the number of seclusions, I don't even know if there's any students who are gonna be talking about, I don't wanna say there's none.
No, but in
It would
the
be a
past,
really low number for us of students that seclusion would even be being considered.
right. And with regard to restraints, which we'll get into in a little bit, last year we had 0, so we've had a low number for the last couple of years, which is great
Yeah.
and really good. As far as the seclusion reporting form, all seclusion incidents should be reported to the portal through DESE by June 30th. They should be entered in real time, so prior to June 30th. If it results in injury to a student or staff member, the department emergency seclusion reporting form must be submitted to the department no later than 3 school working days following the seclusion. The principal shall maintain an ongoing record of all the reports. And we don't need to log timeouts, but we do need to log seclusions. But at the elementary school, which is where more of our timeouts occur, we do log them, and we have a binder in both buildings, actually.
And we've updated all our forms to be prepared for this if we need to do it.
Yes, yes. So takeaways, again, just to hit on all of the points, timeouts are voluntary. Students must be free to leave. They don't have to prove that they're ready. As far as seclusions and timeouts, we updated room standards. There's strict emergency seclusion limits. We really have to make sure that it's imminent threat or physical harm, not just defiance. And there's strict reporting as they phase out. Also, too, I just saw recently released by DESE was more behavioral strategies approaches for the districts to utilize. There's online trainings that we'll be implementing and having the special ed staff and counseling staff see, which I think will be great to also help with us. We'd have our regular CPI training that we have special ed teachers and ESPs that work in our programs that support students with behaviors. They have that every year, but this is exciting that there's newer training available through the department too. So that's that. As far as restraints, they didn't make many changes to it, but I know that there was some conversation at our last policy meeting with regard to it. So I don't know if we wanted to bring that up at this point.
Yeah, sure, it'd be great.
Sure.
So I guess I'll just show you that the policy itself was developed by MASC. We sent it to our attorneys for review. The attorneys actually recommended that we use the MASC policy. So that was their recommendation. And there's a lot of change here. The red's the change. So there's a lot of change here in terms of the language and forms and this is really all about that whole seclusion piece. And that you can do a seclusion, but it has to be, the parents have to be notified in advance that this could possibly happen. And then all the regulations around if you do an seclusion, what happens? So that's what a lot of this verbiage is here. And then obviously it also redefines the timeout to make sure it's really clear that a student has the right to leave a timeout. Because if they don't have the right to leave a timeout, that's a seclusion. And so you can't do seclusions unless everybody's on board in advance. So that was a very high summary of 4 pages of red in terms of the changes. But when we get into restraint, one of the things Melissa, I can hit on this front, that's right.
Sure.
One of the things that we talked about actually, they added this language, which surprised me a little bit in red. And at the policy subcommittee meeting, we had some discussion about this, saying that, in essence, that you could use a prone restraint, where you're on top of a student. And some members of the policy subcommittee questioned that, if that would be appropriate, if whether prone restraint should be being used at all. And so Melissa and I have talked about that a little bit, and our position is we agree, we don't think that language needs to be in here. So it's here now because the policy subcommittee moved it forward, but I guess our proposal would be to strike that new red, including prone restraints where permitted, and take that out of this policy when we bring it back for a second reading.
Because we never used them. Anyways.
No, we're not using prone restraints. I know, Bill, you're the one.
It was I that had an issue with it. I appreciate that, but I'd actually like for there to be a statement saying that prone restraint will not be used
Okay.
by members of the district.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll we can play with this
for discussion.
If people are comfortable with that, I think that's fine.
No, because to me, it seems like they wouldn't need it at all. But they're not dealing with the students. I feel like students that require that are usually sent out of district.
Okay.
So we can rework
Not
this.
to pick on you or anything.
No,
but
I'm
thinking you just draw from your experience.
No, I mean.
Well, that's what I was thinking too when I was going through this. I'm not necessarily desensitized, but I said there are children that do need that.
Yeah, but
then when you think about this
they're not
district,
here.
we're not going to have
Yeah,
that.
they're going to be.
It doesn't
out.
prohibit law enforcement. Does.
Right, if an officer came in and had a response to a situation,
Yeah.
they're going to follow their guidelines and procedures.
Of course.
So we can rework this paragraph. I can rewrite this paragraph to have it be prohibited.
That works.
When we bring it back for the second reading next time.
Okay, that sounds good.
There's
And
also,
go ahead,
sorry,
Melissa, yep.
just where it says mechanical restraint, right there, there's a blurb that talks about the prone.
Prone, so we got to
So
look at
we'd
the section
remove
too.
all that.
Yep.
too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's right there.
yeah, and then the rest of the bullets, I think,
Yeah, except all the
refers to
bullet
prone.
points.
Yeah, so we might even say
Right there, prone restraint.
mechanical restraints, prone restraints, mechanical restraints, medical restraints shall be prohibited in the public schools programs, period.
Mhm.
Because then we don't need a reason why we use a prone restraint.
Right.
Exactly,
So we
exactly.
just take out this
Yep.
whole section.
Yeah.
We take that piece out.
Because they're so traumatic for everyone involved, the people that have to do the hold, the child, and really in a public school setting, there's no reason to ever put your hands on a child.
And to Bill's point, nothing in this law
Yeah.
prohibits law enforcement or judicial authorities or school security personnel from exercising their responsibilities, under their guidelines and their rules.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, any other questions about, I know this policy is huge, and that's why I wanted to have Melissa kind of give a presentation summary of it. Any other questions or recommendations for changes? This is the first reading. Intention would be to bring it back at our next meeting with the changes we discussed this evening. Anything else from Melissa?
No? Anyone? Thank you very
Sorry,
much
I had
for
to
being
wait
here.
Thank you. That's all right. It was educational. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
And we're going to go back to Ron for facilities use and fee schedule.
Okay.
Folks. So what you have in front of you is our first read of policy KF. A little context for it. You currently have a policy for facilities use schedule. The model that we're proposing here would be a consolidated policy across the municipality of Carver, right? Across all of the departments in the town of Carver that have spaces that the community and external groups can use. The rationale for trying to bring together this unified model is twofold. One, from a community user perspective, it'd be beneficial if, regardless of what space they're using, there's some consistency about the rules. And then also, from sort of an operational perspective, the town of Carver has a unified operations and maintenance department anyway that oversees all the buildings, be it a school department building or a police building or a fire building or what have you. And so a set of rules that are consistent helps that team manage all of the spaces a little bit easier, right? We took a bite at this apple a couple years back, a little unsuccessfully, so we're hopeful that this is the second time around we're able to get all of the different constituents and groups on board with one unified singular approach for it. I won't read it all to you, but I've highlighted a couple things that I wanted to underscore that would either be points of emphasis in this policy or be changes from your existing model. Yeah. The second paragraph here that Mr. Neef highlighted is this idea of like centralized coordination application process. This is what I was just talking about. O&M is town-wide. We use this platform called Operations Hero. It doesn't really matter what the software is, that can change from time to time. But whatever the software is, a community member who wants to use a space in your community, be it a school or a field or a library or what have you, can go to this one-stop shopping for most of those spaces and ask to use the space and check the schedule and do those things. So this would bring all of that together and direct everybody to one place for that. If you scroll down to the priority, it's the fourth paragraph on that. This model, this model language is already in your existing policy. We take the school department's policy language and just broaden it to meet all of the different spaces in the community. Essentially, it says that your priority in your community is by category. When it comes to scheduling a space, town meetings and elections are going to get top priority over everything else. Even if you're an outside group and you've already scheduled your thing in the gymnasium, but then the date for town meeting changes, you're moving, it's town meeting first, right? Then the school department, sports and activities and recreational, then the Carver-based nonprofits and youth sports, then the nonprofits that are not in Carver, and then any for-profit. That's sort of the pecking order for who gets to use the spaces and who gets to get them scheduled, right? We've organized that by category as well, and you'll see that in the fee structure too. If you go to the second page, number 3, there's a number of policies that'll help govern the use of all the different properties. Some of these, again, sort of combine some of the things that general government has already had. Some of them combine the things that the school department's been using. Some of them, as part of this like developmental process, as we've collaborated with town hall and recreation and all the different community groups sort of came out organically as the rules of the road when it comes to using a space, facilities in the community of Carver. Number 3 was already in your policy. I just want to underscore it. If you're using the space, you got to have insurance. We got to have proof of that insurance. Our little platform, the software platform, allows us to collect that information and make sure that it's categorized and organized. But encouraging our community members and people who use the spaces to utilize that platform allows us to make sure that we have that data sort of on hand if there's any questions. Number 6 is the next one that I want to highlight with you. It creates a scenario in which no matter what space you're using, you have to request additional equipment if you need additional equipment. It doesn't necessarily come with all the equipment because that equipment was bought by the taxpayers, right? And ultimately it's the taxpayers' equipment. And so in some cases, uses of spaces automatically came with equipment. In some cases it didn't. So we want to start with a fresh slate and say you can ask for the equipment, but that might be different or separate depending on the space. The other construct I want to share with you, which came out of these conversations, collaborations with all the different departments that we were working with, is this idea of like the managing department's personnel still run the space. So if you're at the middle high school gym, the athletic program is still going to help manage and run that space. And if you have questions, you should be talking with them, right? If you're going to be talking about, you know, the Purchase Street field, you're still going to talk with the recreation department about the purchasing street field. This just creates a set of rules that we're all going to follow, but it doesn't cede any authority from all of those different departments that help manage the day-to-day operation of all these spaces. And you'll see that theme, that construct of like the managing department across all the different departments in your community. Number 11 on the 3rd page. The turf is sort of this unique space. Obviously, this was a big investment by your community several years ago. We just underscored like it has its own set of rules of the road to make sure that we maintain that turf long term, and that ultimately turf rentals may also incur a cost for the lights if you're going to go late. As a side note, most of the funds that come in through here go to the management and operation and maintenance of these spaces. Turf fees are separate. They go separate to a revolving account that stays only for the eventual replacement and upgrade of your turf. Yeah. In a future school committee meeting, we'll give you an update on some analysis and study that we've done with the turf to tell you a little bit more about that. More to come on the turf. The last two, number 17 and 18, I want to underscore with you. One of the things we tried to think about was all the different scenarios by which the community and organizations around our community use our spaces. The intent of the policy is to try to narrow those to a set of rules, but we also recognize that there's going to be unanticipated needs that pop up that this policy hasn't thought of yet. There's also some that just don't fit the mold. For example, in the schools, we use the YMCA for some after-school services for our kiddos. If we applied this policy to the YMCA because they're not based in Carver, right? YMCA is a national organization, the cost would be astronomical and we'd no longer have the YMCA helping our kiddos and our families. And we know there's going to be those scenarios in other spaces in your community as well. So 17 carves out the caveat that the superintendent of schools or the town administrator, based on where those spaces are, can set expectations for facility use in special circumstances, like the YMCA is an example. The last one, I'll be honest with you, gosh, we've probably spent 6-8 months on this project so far. This category 2, this idea of like Carver-based nonprofits, community-based youth sports, youth groups, was probably the lion's share of our efforts. For a couple of reasons. One, we recognize that these are just community members trying to give services to kids and families in your community, right? They're not trying to make a buck. And a lot of these things are things that all of us and our kiddos use on a regular basis. So this is really reciprocal service. They're providing a service, they're using some space. We want to have some skin in the game for that space. We don't want to make it prohibitive for any community group to use a community space to provide services for the community. So we've gone round and round about the structure of fees for them. Currently in Carver, there's this potpourri of structure. Almost every group has a different structure, and so we want to try to bring some continuity to that. But in doing so, because everyone has a different starting place, it was really difficult to find a landing place that would be reasonable for all organizations, and yet still have all organizations contribute back to their community's operation and maintenance of all their spaces. So if you go to the next page, please, you see our fee schedule, which ties to number 18. There's 4 categories of organizations that can use spaces here in Carver. Category 1 is just your town organizations. The town of Carver, the athletic department. It costs no money. They are us. I'm going to skip category 2 in a second. Category 3 is any nonprofit outside of Carver. They're not trying to make any money. They're providing a service, but they don't pay taxes here in Carver, so they're going to pay some amount more to contribute to the maintenance and ongoing use of all these spaces. And category 4 is for for-profit organizations. They're trying to make $1 using public spaces, which you can do, but we want to make sure you're giving back the maximum contribution to the taxpayer, to the facilities, to continue their operation. Category 2, Carver-based nonprofits. These are your youth sports programs, your community groups. They've all had a wide variety of, some did hourly, some had a flat fee by participant, some had no fee. And so after meeting with those groups and getting input from those groups as well, we've landed on this flat fee for this year, which is a $15 per participant fee. It's a model that the Recreation Department had used for a number of its organizations, although not all of them. That sets a low bar in terms of the total financial contribution that an organization would have to provide to utilize a space. We sat down and met with open invitation to all of the Carver youth organizations who were interested, walked through this process as well, got their feedback. We thought this was a reasonable middle ground to start with. 2 things about this. 1, the policy states that, look, we'll use this as a starting place with the expectation that these organizations will then go on to the town's website, Operation Zero, log their space and time, so that we have some data to go on to see if an hourly rate is reasonable, and if so, what that hourly rate should be based on all the different usages. If an hourly rate is reasonable, it would be equitable in that an organization that used a space more would pay more. They're giving more wear and tear to that space. If an organization uses it less, they pay less. You have less wear and tear. But because right now we don't have all the organizations using that platform, we have a real blind spot when it comes to the data. And so this policy, if enacted, would allow all those organizations to get on board with the platform, get them all using that so that we have a better view of who is using what and for how long. In this interim, they pay $15 per student. Next year, we reevaluate now that we have some data and determine if they're able to sit in an hourly rate, what that hourly rate would be.
And the way we said that on time, I'm sorry if I missed it, was that in terms of usage, the other problem we had is some groups weren't using at all, and some groups were just blanketing.
Oh yeah.
So they were saying, okay, I'm gonna block off this field for the whole day. They may only use it for 3 hours, but they wanted to make sure they had it. So we want to stop that practice. And then, but that also made it hard to determine an hourly rate, because if we went back into the system and logged how many hours they said they used the facility or the space, it wasn't going to be financially feasible for them. But we found out that they were just blocking off spaces. So we want to discourage that behavior as well.
That's a good point. And the last thing, just to add to that, Ms. Meek, is that by bringing everybody on the same set of rules and sort of giving the same rules of the road, it allows them to look and see what's actually being used. So if an organization wants to use the space, now they can get some confidence in if it's in there, it's actually being used. It's not just being blocked off necessarily, so I can get my group in there to get extra practice in or get a meeting in, whatever. So we feel like this is a middle ground, sort of compromise model that gets everybody on board, allows everyone to get access to the same set of rules, and do it in a way that's financially manageable, specifically for your local community organizations.
I mean, we have to be upfront and say this is probably going to bring in less money.
Yes.
So fewer numbers. This will bring in fewer numbers of dollars in the short term, with the goal of looking to transition to an hourly rate. And when we met with the groups, the heads of all the groups, we said that. We said this is a starting point to get us all on the same page, to get a better understanding of use and how it's being used, and then we're probably going to transition to hopefully changes to some sort of hourly rate. And I'm not saying it's going to bring in significant less money, but it will be less. This setup would bring in a little less money than we brought in the past year.
In doing some of this work, and I think we talked about this at the subcommittee as well, we pulled comps from dozens of communities around here. Most of them do an hourly rate. Carver generally was on the lower side of that current comp. So I think there's some latitude to get closer to that median, right, wherever you want to say where that median might be. But the $15 per participant is a past practice that had been used here in Carver, so it's something that people recognized and were comfortable with, right? Last couple of things, if you would be kind enough to scroll to the bottom of this, Mr. Neath, there's a couple of final bullets when it comes to fees I just want to say out loud. The first is this idea of what is a nonprofit? And so when we sat down with all of our colleagues from our local community groups, said, hey, look, everyone's in a different place when it comes to being a nonprofit. But we're going to ask all those groups to demonstrate that they are a nonprofit in some capacity, and our colleagues in recreation are taking the lead on making those determinations, which I think is helpful. And in some cases, the bullet number 2 there, it may require custodial services depending on the event. Again, at the discretion of the managing department. So if it's at the middle high school auditorium, you might need a custodian there. We decide if you need a custodian based on what you're telling us you want to do. And then we charge you separately based on the custodian's CBA, right? And lastly, just so people know where the money's going, the fees offset the school-based spaces. So we have middle, high school, elementary school, building use fund. Those funds go into the building use fund, and then building use funds are used to help offset investments in the facility, regardless of what those might be. Right? Oh, and it mentions the turf there as well.
And the only other thing I was at is certainly we've been actively involved with Emily Slavin and Mary Ross from the REC committee. They've been at all the meetings and they've been very helpful and supportive in this process. The goal is, as Ron said at the beginning, that this be a town-wide policy. The select board intends to take this up in September as well. And so right now I feel like we have a unified approach in terms of this, something that was a little inconsistent. So I think we're bringing some consistency. We're unifying everybody on the same page, and that's why in the end we supported this policy as presented.
I think we built consensus around it too, right from sort of go. And there's a lot of different constituents who have voice in this conversation, have access, and all want different things, all coming from it from different perspectives. So yeah, it's really not perfect, but I think it's a consensus policy. I'll field any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions?
Just with that automation here, hopefully a basic part.
Yeah. Well, I think that's not to go into too much detail, but I think that's the big carrot and stick part of this work, right? By saying hey, the town of Carver now has this set of rules, and part of those rules is in order to use a space, you must go on there, otherwise you can't use it. And we're not trying to be difficult with folks, just want to have consistency with the usage. It sort of directs people to all use the same sort of things.
And I think an important thing we did there is we created a one-page, I shouldn't say we, because I didn't create it, but we created. We created a one-page sign-up sheet in essence, but they have, each group needs to identify, this is our primary contact person, this is our person who's going to be in charge of Operations Hero, email, phone number, so that we can have direct contact to the person who's in charge of making sure everything's being done in Operations Hero from each group, and say, so that if we find in 6 weeks they're not doing that, we can follow up and say, hey, you agreed that you're going to be the one who represents your group and is in charge of this.
And to be fair, using Operations Hero actually makes your life a lot easier anyway, because then you can see right away whether or not that space is even available for the time that you want it for the most part. So it's good.
People turn those forms in, I believe.
Yeah, they're coming in now. And I think that's...
I did just reach out to women's softball in Carver, who's supposed to be reaching out to you with their information and stuff.
Brilliant. And I appreciate community organizations are run by, for the most part, volunteers, and that changes over time. I used to do the Halifax soccer. I'm not doing that anymore. My kids are doing that right now, right? So there is just natural turnover with the folks who are doing all the scheduling and the coordinating, all of those things. And by having this common set of rules and one place to go, it makes that handoff within their organizations a little bit easier too. So, yeah.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Yes, thank you very much for all the hard work. I'm sure it took many hours.
No vote
To
today.
get to that
vote-
point.
Yeah, so
We're
that
gonna
this
vote
is,
that one in September?
this is the
Yes.
first reading of the policy. It was
Okay.
approved by the policy subcommittee to come forward to the full committee. This was the first reading. We'll have a second reading with hopefully a vote in September. As I said, the select board intends to take this up in September as well, and hopefully we'll vote it. So hopefully by the end of September, we'll have the school committee and select board approval.
Excellent. Okay, so next that brings us to the first reading of policy JID, teen dating violence.
And this one will be a little quicker than our other policy updates, we hope. Actually this summer, I became aware through the Mass Association of School Superintendents that there was a law passed in 2010 requiring school districts to have a teen dating violence policy. It turns out many districts, including Carver, never adopted such a policy. And recently, it's actually been the focus of a couple of complaints to PRS, which is called the Problem Resolution System. So if a family or a member of the community feels like a district isn't following laws, and actually PRS is generally in terms of special ed, but it can also be bullying, harassment, there can be those as well. So there are a couple of school districts that had issues related to this, and PRS came back and said, hey, you're supposed to have this teen dating violence policy that your district doesn't have, you should have that. So MASS, actually their attorneys drafted the policy. I sent it to our attorneys for review. They said the MASS policy is fine. And so I brought this to the policy subcommittee with the recommendation that it come to the full committee, that we just go into compliance with the 2010 law that requires us to have such a policy. You know, in big picture terms, the policy gives a definition of what is teen dating violence, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, repeated use of language that demeans, threatens, including name calling, put downs, etc. Technology abuse, anything that can happen online or through social media. Gives warning signs. What could be the warning signs that staff could see that may be examples of a teen dating violence situation. Statutory obligations to report and investigate. And then if it is reported, while the school district is conducting the investigation, that there be a safety plan made for both people involved actually, and to provide social emotional supports for everybody. And then to have a prevention and education piece to talk about teen dating violence within the health curriculum. So I honestly have to check with Mike Santos in terms of I know at one point we did have a teen dating violence piece of our health curriculum. I have to go back to the middle high school to see if that is in place. But these other pieces would be things we would do anyhow. So I don't feel like anything else here is like new. This is stuff we would be doing if someone came to report a concern about teen dating violence. And this is pretty much, so I don't feel concerned about any of the response pieces outlined in this policy. The only thing we have to check in on, which I can have for you when we do the second reading, is the educational piece is currently part of our health curriculums. It has been in the past, but I can't say today that I know that it is currently. But I'll have that information for you when we bring it back for a second reading. There is a piece of the law that does state it's optional to have like a teen dating violence task force. I did not add that piece of the policy because I just don't feel it's necessary. It would be a standing group to work on education and responding to teen dating violence. In my opinion, I don't think it's reached a level of prevalence within the school community that would require a task force. Not saying I haven't seen this in my administrative career, because I have, but I don't think it reached the level of adding a task force, so I did not add that piece of the policy. That's actually just a recommendation, it's not a requirement as part of the law.
One thing that you were going to do too was the training for staff.
Yeah, so we
Here,
would have a training for staff as well to discuss signs. The training for staff would be around these concepts of the signs of teen dating violence. So any other questions or thoughts on, again, this first reading, bring it back in the next meeting for a second reading on adopted teen dating violence policy.
Anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you. So moving on, that brings us to the approval of 4 separate field trips.
Okay, you can bundle these together if you want to,
Yeah.
certainly.
Absolutely.
So 11th grade trip to Salem, which was a traditional field trip they do every year. Senior trip to Florida, again a traditional field trip. These are all trips that occur every year.
That occur every year.
The 8th grade trip to New York City for this year, and the 7th and 8th grade trip to Six Flags. So I would support all of these field trips. Look for the school committee's approval.
Okay. I move that we approve all the field trips as presented this evening.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to reports from the school committee. There are some items on here that I wanted to talk about. I will be super brief. I know it's 10 minutes to 9 and everyone's probably ready to go. So I had my first meeting being a part of the National School Boards Association policy leadership cohort. I have some homework that I need to do. This is, the cohort that I'm in is around recruitment and retention of teachers. So I am going to be meeting with Scott and some other members of leadership team to talk about some of the challenges for our district, so that I can then put that together and present it at our next cohort meeting. So these meetings will take place monthly from now through January, culminating with a capstone project at the Advocacy Institute in DC at the end of January, beginning of February. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that work has begun, and as the meetings go on, if there's an opportunity for discussion amongst the committee, I will bring it. If anyone has any questions, if they're interested in learning more information, just let me know. I'm happy to share out the programming information that we've received so far. Let's see, I think, sorry, I'm flip-flopping. Okay, so I actually skipped the first one. So the first one is the Northeastern Regional Conference of, again, the National School Boards Association. I actually just received the meeting agenda for that today. It's taking place at the end of September. So we will meet as a region in Connecticut. There'll be some presentations from Maine, from some folks that are with the PAID group. In other states, school committees are called school boards, so some of the nomenclature is just a little bit different. There'll be a video series that we're going to watch. There'll be some legislative updates, some advocacy updates. So I will share any information that's provided at that back. Every year whenever I attend one of these meetings, I always bring something back. So I'm looking forward to seeing my colleagues I haven't seen since April. And then I just wanted to briefly mention that the MASS annual conference is in November. It's just crazy to think that it's less than 3 months away. The year has gone by so incredibly fast. And I know it's in Danvers this year, so it's a bit of a hike for people. But if anyone is interested in attending, we typically try to do a dinner. Again, I know it's a much further ride than planning has been in the past. But if anyone is interested in attending, I know Jackie's registered. If anyone wants to attend for a day or to attend one of the award ceremony is on Friday night, or the keynote speaker, just let me know and I can try to make arrangements to get everyone tickets. There'll be more involvement with the board of directors this year. It's in a new space, so it's much bigger, a lot more room for vendors and nonprofit organizations to share out their information with everyone. So I'm looking forward to that professional development this year. And then in September, we will need to vote delegate and the alternate for the meeting, so I'll make sure that I share that form out. So that way we're covered for delegate assembly. So with that, I would just say enjoy the last days of summer to everyone that's out there. Looking forward to seeing everyone on opening day, and it'll be great to see Tom in person. And just remember, please be patient with the school buses, especially the first week of school. You know, those runs can sometimes be challenging, and there's hopefully, I'm not sure if all the road work's going to be done before then, but some people might drivers might need some additional patience there. I know the street by my neighborhood is almost done, but not quite. I just want to say thank you to all the work that went into putting all this information together for us tonight. We're so fortunate that we receive all the information that we receive in the detail that we do. Super proud to be a part of Carver School Committee, our Carver community, and looking forward to the 2026-2027 school year. Anyone have anything they'd like to share out? Oh, I do want to quickly mention that Shane Gives Thanks Food Pantry is continuing their Peyton Packs program this year. They right now on their Facebook page and on their website, they are accepting donations for Peyton Packs, which is for students that can collect food on Fridays so they can have food available to them over the weekends. So if you're able to donate or to help them out in any way, please do so.
Just a reminder, we have a athletic policy subcommittee meeting Wednesday night.
Yep.
And Thursday night we have building tours starting at 5:30 at the elementary school.
Okay. ESMS, MHS, I guess I should say.
5:30 elementary school.
Yep. Oh, and I want to give a quick shout out to our athletic director, Kelsey Kincaid, and to everyone that worked on the banner committee. I wish more people from the community had been there, but I encourage people to stop by the lobby, see the new interactive board. You never know who you might find in some of those pictures and those yearbooks and sports photos that have been uploaded. And AKA Mr. Neef was really where I was thinking, because the kids are going to be like, Mr. Neef is in there? Anyway, so I just want to say thank you to everyone that turned out. It really looks wonderful. So thank you to everyone that was behind that project. And I promise that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Aye.
so 8:56 p.m., August 24th, 2026. Meeting of the Carver School Committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.